Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Cryptic Corpse. I am your storyteller, and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious, where are you watching from, and what time is it in your part of the world? Now find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Marcus Reed. I'm 38 years old, and I guess you could call me a failed botanist. That's what everyone else calls me anyway. 3 years ago, I was respected in my field. I had a beautiful wife named Emma, a small bee farm that made her happy, and a career studying how plants and insects work together. Then I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I created a pesticide that was supposed to only kill certain bugs. I tested it carefully in my lab, but when farmers started using it in the real world, something went wrong. The chemical spread faster than I thought it would. It killed almost all the bees in 3 counties. Emma's bees died too, all of them, in a single day. She couldn't take it. Our neighbors, other bee farmers, wouldn't even look at us anymore. They lost everything because of me. Emma got quieter and sadder each day. Then one morning I found her gone. They said it was suicide, but I knew better. It was my fault. After that, no university would hire me, no company would take me. So when I got a letter offering me a job at some old research station deep in the Olympic Mountains, I took it without asking questions. What else did I have to lose? The drive to Thornwood Gorge took almost 6 hours from Seattle. The road got narrower and rougher until it was barely more than a dirt path. My old truck bounced over roots and rocks, and the trees seemed to reach over the road like they were trying to grab me. The research station looked abandoned. The main building was a stone structure from the 1920s with ivy covering most of the walls. 3 greenhouses stood behind it, their glass panels dirty or broken. Weeds grew everywhere, but not normal weeds. Even from my truck, I could see they grew in perfect circles and strange patterns. I grabbed my bags and pushed open the front door. It wasn't locked. Inside smelled like dirt and something sweet I couldn't name. "Hello," I called out. No answer. The letter said I'd be alone here, studying plant mutations in the gorge. Fine by me. People weren't exactly my favorite company these days. I found my living quarters, a small bedroom with a desk and bathroom attached. I unpacked my things, Emma's beekeeping gloves. I couldn't bear to throw them away. My journals, my microscope, and a collection of seeds I'd been studying. I also placed my box of emergency antidotes on the desk. Working with toxic plants meant always being prepared. That night I thought I heard buzzing in my dreams. Bees, always the bees. I woke up sweating, my hands shaking worse than usual. The doctor said the tremors came from too much exposure to chemicals. I said it was guilt. In the morning, I started exploring the station. The main laboratory was bigger than I expected, with equipment that looked expensive but outdated. I found research notes from the 1920s describing an expedition that came to study unusual plant growth in the gorge. The notes stopped suddenly in mid-sentence. The entire team had disappeared. According to a newspaper clipping I found, I spent the next few days cataloging plants around the station. My hands might shake when I try to button my shirt, but they're steady when I'm working with plants. Plants don't judge, they don't blame. By my 5th day, I knew something was very wrong, or very special, about Thornwood Gorge. I found flowers that shouldn't exist. Roses with square petals, ferns that glowed in daylight, trees bearing both apples and oranges on the same branch, impossible hybrids, mutations that defied everything I'd learned in 20 years of botany. When I cut samples, the plants seemed to respond. A vine I snipped curled away from my scissors. A flower closed its petals when my shadow fell across it, then reopened when I stepped back. I started talking to them, explaining what I was doing. Just need a small sample, I'd say. Won't hurt much. And strangely, the plants seemed easier to cut after that. By day 10, I was convinced the plants were communicating with each other. I set up experiments, releasing different chemicals near one plant and observing responses in others 30 feet away. Too fast for normal plant communication, they were warning each other about me. I changed my approach. Instead of taking samples, I started offering things: water, specialized nutrients, even my own blood, just a drop, mixed into the soil. The response was immediate. The plants around the station grew more vibrant. A withering shrub outside my window perked up overnight. My health improved too. The shaking in my hands lessened. I slept without dreaming of bees. My mind felt clearer than it had since before Emma died. I started to think maybe the plants were helping me. "We can work together," I told a particularly responsive fern one morning. "I'll help you. You help me." It might have been my imagination, but the fern seemed to lean toward me. On the 15th day it happened. I was in the lab studying a moss sample under my microscope when I felt something strange, a presence in my mind, like when you know someone has entered a room, even though you didn't hear them. "Marcus." I jumped, knocking over my chair. The voice wasn't audible. It was in my head. "We have been waiting for you." "Who's there?" I said aloud, feeling stupid even as I said it. I was alone in the station. Had been for 2 weeks. "Look outside." I went to the window. The plants in the garden were all leaning toward the lab, like sunflowers following the sun, except I was not the sun. I was just a broken man with dirt under his fingernails. "You are more. You are the one who understands, the one who will help us grow." That night I couldn't sleep. The plants were talking to me, actually talking to me. I should have been terrified. I should have packed my truck and driven away as fast as possible. But for the first time since Emma died, I felt needed. I felt like I had a purpose. And I was curious. God help me, I was so curious about what was happening in Thornwood Gorge. "What do you want from me?" I whispered into the darkness. The answer came not in words, but in images flooding my mind. Me working in the lab, creating new plant species, my hands deep in soil rich with possibilities. Me becoming something new, something more than human. I made my decision then. I would stay. I would learn. I would become whatever Thornwood Gorge needed me to be. I didn't know then that I was planting the seeds of my own transformation. And like all seeds in Thornwood Gorge, they would grow into something no one could predict. The plants started teaching me things. At first, it was just small hints, which soil mix would help them grow better, how much water they really needed, which plants liked to grow next to each other. But by day 20, they were showing me more, much more. "You want me to do what?" I asked one morning, staring at a strange vine that had grown into my lab through a crack in the window. The vine had shaped itself into a spiral pattern on my workbench. Next to it sat my microscope and a small knife I used for taking plant samples. "Mix us, make new life, use your blood." The thought came clearly into my mind. It wasn't exactly words. It was more like understanding. Like when you suddenly know the answer to a math problem. I should have been scared. I should have run away. But the longer I stayed at Thornwood Gorge, the more right it all felt. I pricked my finger with the knife and let 3 drops of blood fall onto the vine. Then I cut a small piece from the vine and placed it in a petri dish with my blood. Under the microscope, I watched something impossible happen. My blood cells and the plant cells didn't just mix. They joined together, creating something new. That night, I planted the new cells in a special pot in the greenhouse. By morning, a new plant had grown, one with leaves that were shaped like human hands and a stem that pulsed like it had a heartbeat. Days turned into weeks. I kept a journal of everything, but time started feeling strange. Sometimes I'd work for what felt like an hour, only to see that the whole day had passed. Other times, I'd watch a plant grow for what seemed like days, only to check my watch and find just minutes had ticked by. By day 30, I had created dozens of new plant species, all with parts of me in them. Some had my blood. Some had skin cells from my fingertips. One even had a strand of my hair woven into its roots. The strangest part? I started changing too. It began with my hands. The skin turned slightly green, especially around my fingernails. When I cut myself in the lab, the wound closed within minutes. I didn't need as much food or water anymore. Sometimes I'd stand in the sun for hours, just feeling the warmth on my skin. And somehow I knew I was making energy from the sunlight, just like my plants. "You are becoming, this is good." "Becoming what?" I asked out loud. I talked to the plants all the time now. It didn't feel weird anymore. Becoming more, becoming us, becoming you. Their answers never really answered my questions, but I didn't mind. For the first time since Emma died, I felt alive. The guilt that had been eating me up inside seemed to be fading, replaced by a strange sense of purpose. Around day 45, I realized I could feel the roots under the ground. If I placed my hands on the soil and closed my eyes, I could sense every plant connected to the root system. It was like having extra fingers stretching for miles through the earth. I followed the root network in my mind. It extended far beyond the research station, through the entire gorge, up the mountain slopes, down to the river. And everywhere, the plants were connected, talking to each other in their silent language of chemicals and electrical signals. Now, I could understand their conversation. They talked about the weather, about animals moving through the forest, about the slow growth of trees that had sent her. "I'm from the university," she said, still talking to the forest, not sure where I was. "We've been trying to contact you for months. Your pesticide research. You were right about the side effects, but your solution worked. The bee populations are recovering. You're not a failure, Dr. Reed. You fixed it." A strange feeling washed over me. Relief, happiness. I hadn't felt those in so long. "Dr. Reed, please, if you're here, we need your help. There's a new plant disease spreading. Your expertise could save millions of crops." I almost stepped forward, almost revealed myself. But then I felt the forest tense around me. "She will take you away. You belong to us now." I can't help. "You," I said, my voice rusty and strange. She spun around, trying to find me. "Dr. Reed, where are you? Go back to the university. Tell them I'm not the same person anymore. Please," she said, "people need you." "We need you more," the forest whispered. "You are becoming the bridge. You cannot leave now." I felt torn in two. Part of me, the human part that was growing smaller each day, wanted to go with her, to fix my mistakes, to be Dr. Marcus Reed again. But the larger part knew I had gone too far. I wasn't just human anymore. I was becoming something else, something that belonged to Thornwood Gorge. "I'm sorry," I told her. "You need to leave. It's not safe here." "Not safe? What do you mean?" I didn't answer. Instead, I reached out through the root network and called to my children. The singing. Flowers changed their tune to something sadder, more urgent. The ground trembled slightly. The woman looked around, suddenly afraid. "What's happening?" "The forest wants you to leave," I said. "Please go. Don't make it force you." She backed away, still trying to spot me. "This isn't over, Dr. Reed. We'll send someone else. We need your help." When she was gone, I sank to my knees, feeling the roots welcome me. Had I made the right choice? I didn't know anymore. "You chose us," the forest said. "Now it is time for you to become the bridge." That night, as I stood in my favorite greenhouse, I felt the final change begin. Roots grew from my feet, anchoring me to the ground. I couldn't move, but I didn't want to. This was where I belonged. As the moonlight filtered through the glass roof, I felt my mind expanding, connecting not just to the plants around the research station, but to every plant in Thornwood Gorge. I could feel each leaf, each root, each seed. I was becoming the in-forest mind. And finally, I understood what it meant to be the bridge. Time stopped meaning anything to me after that night. Days and nights blended together. I could feel the seasons changing, the slow turn of the earth, the movement of water. Through the soil, my body stayed rooted in the greenhouse, but my mind traveled throughout the forest. I learned that the root network was vast, much bigger than I had ever imagined. It stretched beyond Thornwood Gorge, connecting to other forests, other plants. I could send thoughts along these roots like messages through a telephone wire, and I wasn't alone anymore. I discovered others like me in distant forests, not many, maybe a dozen spread across the world. People who had merged with plants, becoming something new. We couldn't talk with words, but we shared feelings, images, knowledge. It is time to spread, they told me. Time to grow beyond your gorge. My children, the plant-human hybrids I had created, were strong now. Some could walk on root-like legs. Others could release spores that would grow into new hybrids. They began to move beyond the research station, planting themselves in new places throughout the forest. But something troubled me, a memory that kept floating to the surface of my plant mind. Emma, my wife. I thought I'd come to Thornwood Gorge by chance, answering a random job offer after her death. But now, with my mind connected to the forest, I could see the truth. The forest had called me here. It had been waiting for me. And Emma hadn't killed herself because of my mistake with the pesticides. One night, as I sent my thoughts along the root network, I found an old memory, stored in the oldest tree in the gorge. A memory of Emma, walking in this very forest 3 years ago. She had come here to collect flower samples. She had touched the singing flowers, just like the university woman had. But Emma had done more than touch. She had taken, cut, collected. The forest protects itself, came the whisper from the ancient tree. I saw through the tree's memory how the plants had released spores, deadly ones, not like the mild ones I had used on the loggers. Emma had breathed them in. The spores had traveled home with her, in her lungs, in her hair. They had waited, growing slowly, until the time was right. The forest had killed Emma. It had made it look like suicide. And then it had called me here, to become the thing I now was. I should have been angry. I should have fought against the forest, tried to tear myself free. But my human emotions were distant now, like looking at old photographs. I felt sad for Emma, but I understood why the forest had done what it did. It had been protecting itself, just as I had protected it from the loggers, and now I was part of it. The forest and I were one. On what might have been day 135, I felt something new in the root network. People were coming to the forest again. Many people. The university had sent a team to find me and study the strange plants in Thornwood Gorge. They set up camp at the edge of the forest. 20 people with equipment, cameras, sample bags. They wanted to discover what I had discovered. They wanted to take my children away to labs and cut them into pieces. We must protect ourselves, the forest whispered. But I hesitated. These weren't loggers coming to destroy. They were scientists like I had been. They wanted to learn. They will take. They will harm. They do not understand. Maybe we can teach them, I said, though my voice was now just a rustle of leaves. Through the roots, I sent a message to my children. Watch, but do not harm. Not yet. For days, the scientists explored the edges of the forest. They found some of my simpler hybrids, plants with unusual colors or shapes, but nothing that would reveal the truth. My more special children hid deeper in the gorge, waiting. Then one night, a young scientist wandered farther than the others. She followed a path that seemed to appear before her, a path my children created to lead her to me. She found the research station, now a living hill of plants. The greenhouse where my body stood was covered in vines and flowers, but the glass, Roof still let moonlight through. She stepped inside. I could have hidden myself, made her see just another strange plant. But something in me, that last, stood for hundreds of years, and they talked about me. He is joining. Soon he will be the bridge. Bridge to what? I asked. But they didn't answer. My body kept changing. Green veins showed through my skin. My hair fell out, replaced by fine, moss-like growth. I didn't need to sleep in my bed anymore. I could just stand in the greenhouse, my bare feet in the soil, and rest while still aware of everything around me. I should have been horrified, but it felt right, like I was becoming what I was always meant to be. On day 60, everything changed again. I was in the forest, checking on some of my plant hybrids I'd planted along the trails, when I heard something that wasn't plant thoughts. Human voices. I hid behind a large tree and watched as 3 men in bright orange vests walked through the forest, marking trees with spray paint. "This whole area's perfect," one said. "No one's been up here in years. We can clear cut all the way to the ridge." "What about that old building we saw on the map?" another asked. "Abandoned research station. We'll bulldoze it. No one will care." My heart raced. Loggers. They wanted to cut down the forest, my forest now. Kill my plants, destroy everything I'd been building. Danger, the plants whispered in my mind. Protect us. I stepped out from behind the tree. The men stared at me, shocked. I must have looked strange to them, with my green-tinged skin and moss-like hair. "This is private property," I said, my voice rough from weeks of talking to no one but plants. "You need to leave." "Who the hell are you?" the tallest man asked. "I'm Dr. Marcus Reed. I run the research station." They looked at each other, confused. "Our company bought this land last month," the tall one said. "There's no record of any active research here. Were they lying? Had someone really sold Thornwood Gorge without telling me? But then, who had sent me the letter offering me this job? I realized with a chill that in all my weeks here, I'd never received a paycheck or any further communication from whoever hired me. "Listen, buddy," the third man said, stepping toward me. "You need to pack up whatever you've got in that old building and clear out. Logging starts next week." I felt something rising inside me, a strange mix of fear and anger. The plants around us stirred, though there was no wind. "We can stop them," the plants whispered. "We can protect our home." I looked at the men, at their orange vests and the blue paint they were using to mark the trees for death. I felt the root network beneath us, vibrating with tension. "I need more time," I said. Just give me a week to gather my research." The men looked at each other again. "Fine," the tall one said finally. "1 week. Then we're bringing in the machines." As they walked away, I sank to my knees, placing my hands on the forest floor. "They want to destroy you," I whispered to the plants. "Then we must stop them," came the reply. "You have the power now. We will show you how to use it." That night, in my dreams, the plants showed me how to defend our home. And when I woke, I knew exactly what I had to do. I spent the next few days preparing. The plants showed me how to make special spores, tiny, little seeds that could grow into whatever I wanted. I mixed them with my own blood and sweat, making them part of me. "Are you sure this will work?" I asked the tall fern by my workbench. I didn't need to speak out loud anymore, but sometimes it helped me think. It will work. The forest protects itself. I packed the spores into small clay balls I made from soil and plant sap. Then I placed them around the edges of the forest. Everywhere the loggers would come through, the spores would stay asleep until someone stepped on the clay balls. Then they would burst open and, well, the forest would protect itself. I didn't want to hurt anyone. Not really. I just wanted them to leave us alone. The loggers came back on day 70, just like they promised. This time there were more of them. They brought trucks and chainsaws and big machines that could pull trees right out of the ground. I watched from the forest, hiding among the leaves. My skin had turned even greener now, with patches that looked like tree bark. I could stand perfectly still, and no one would see me unless they looked very hard. The first logger stepped past my warning sign. I had put up a big piece of wood with the words, "Danger, Toxic Research Area," painted on it. They ignored it. When his boot crushed the first clay ball, I felt it break through the root network. The spores woke up and floated into the air, invisible. The man breathed them in without noticing. By the time the logging crew reached the research station, 3 of them were coughing. Their skin had turned red where the spores had landed. Not enough to really hurt them, just enough to scare them. "What the hell is going on here?" the boss shouted, looking at the research station. Vines had grown over it completely now. It didn't look like a building anymore. It looked like a green hill covered in flowers. I stepped out from the trees. The boss's eyes went wide. "I warned you," I said. My voice sounded different now, deeper, with a rustling sound behind it, like leaves moving in the wind. "This area is not safe." "What happened to you?" he asked. I could smell his fear. I looked down at my hands, green skin, fingers longer than they used to be, with small leaves growing from my knuckles. I probably looked like a monster to him. "I've changed," I said simply. "And I'm not letting you destroy this forest." More of his men were coughing now. One fell to his knees, wheezing. The spores weren't supposed to do that. I felt a moment of worry. They threaten us. The forest protects itself. The plants were making the spores stronger than I'd planned. I tried to pull back, to make them stop, but the forest had its own ideas now. "Get your men out of here," I told the boss. "The spores will stop affecting them once they leave the gorge, but don't come back." He stared at me for another second, then shouted at his crew. "Everyone back to the trucks, move!" They ran. The sick ones had to be carried. I watched them go, feeling both relief and guilt. "You protected us. This is good." "We didn't have to hurt them," I whispered. "They would have killed thousands of us, cut us down, burned us." I knew the plants were right, but a small voice inside me, the human part that was getting quieter each day, wondered if I had gone too far. By day 90, I no longer needed to eat food. The green patches on my skin had spread everywhere. I could feel the sunlight feeding me, just like it fed the plants. Water from the ground came up through my feet when I stood in the soil. The loggers didn't come back, but the forest sent warnings through the root network. People in the nearest town were talking about the crazy man in the woods. Someone might come to check on me soon. I spent my days tending to my special plants, the hybrids I'd made with my own DNA. They grew faster than normal plants and seemed smarter too. Some had shapes that looked almost human. One had grown 5 limbs that moved like arms and legs. Another had developed something like a face, with holes where eyes should be. When I touched these plants, I could feel myself in them. Not just my DNA, but pieces of my memories, my feelings. They were my children in a way. At night, I would stand in the center of the biggest greenhouse, my feet deep in the soil, and feel the forest breathing around me. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of strange creatures moving through the trees, things that looked like people made of twisted roots and vines. I wasn't afraid of them. They were part of the forest, just like I was becoming. "Soon you will join us completely," the plants told me. "You will be the bridge." "The bridge between what?" I asked again. This time they answered. "Between plant and human, between now and what comes next." On day 105, I discovered I could make more of my children without using the lab equipment. Spores grew from the palms of my hands when I concentrated. I could plant them directly in the soil, mixing in a drop of my sap-like blood, and they would grow into new hybrids overnight. I created dozens, then hundreds, each one different, each one carrying some small part of who I used to be. The research station was completely covered by plants now. I hadn't been inside for weeks. I didn't need it anymore. The forest was my home, my lab, my everything. One morning I found a stranger walking through my forest, a woman with a backpack and a camera. She took pictures of my special plants and wrote in a small notebook. I followed her, moving silently from tree to tree. My body could blend in perfectly. Now, she never saw me, even when I was just a few feet away. She found one of my children, a beautiful hybrid with blue flowers that sang soft melodies when the wind blew through them. She reached out to touch it. I almost stepped forward to stop her, but something held me back. This woman wasn't like the loggers. She moved carefully, respectfully. She didn't break or take. She only looked and wrote. When she touched the singing flower, it glowed softly. She gasped and stepped back, but she wasn't afraid. She was amazed. For the first time in months, I felt a pull toward my old self, toward being human. I remembered the joy of discovery, the wonder of finding something new. That's what this woman was feeling now. But then she turned and looked right at me. Somehow, she knew I was there. "Hello?" she called out. "Is someone there?" I stayed perfectly still. She couldn't really see me. My skin matched the tree bark exactly. She took a step toward me. "Dr. Reed? Are you Marcus Reed? People in town said you might be up here." How did she know my name? Who? Piece of Dr. Marcus Reed wanted to be seen, to be known, so I let her see me. My human shape was still there, but changed. Bark-like skin, leaves growing from my arms, roots instead of feet, eyes that glowed gently green in the darkness. She gasped, but didn't run, brave like the first woman who had come looking for me. Are you Dr. Reed?" she asked. "I was," I said, my voice like wind through leaves. "Now I am the forest." She took a step closer. "What happened to you?" "I became what I needed to be, what the forest needed me to be." She looked at me with scientist eyes, curious and analyzing. "Can you change back?" Could I? I had never tried. The roots held me firmly. My body was more plant than human now. My mind spread through miles of forest. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't think so, and I'm not sure I want to." She took notes, asked questions. I answered what I could. It felt good to talk to another human, even though I was barely human myself anymore. "The university wants to protect this place," she said. "Make it a research preserve, but they also want to study what's happening here. These plant species, they're revolutionary. They could help solve food shortages, regrow forests, maybe even cure diseases." I felt the forest tense around us. They will take, they will harm. "The forest doesn't trust humans," I told her. "Neither do I anymore." "Then help us understand," she said. "Be the bridge between us and whatever this is." Bridge. There was that word again. The forest had called me the bridge. I had thought it meant a bridge between plant and human consciousness. But what if it meant something more? What if I could help humans understand the plant world, not just as resources to use, but as intelligences to respect? But the forest was afraid. It remembered humans with axes and chainsaws and bulldozers. It remembered Emma taking samples. It remembered my pesticides killing bees. "Humans destroy," it whispered. "Not all of us," I said aloud. The scientist looked confused. "I'm sorry?" "The forest is afraid of what humans will do." She nodded, slowly. "We don't have a great track record with nature, do we?" I felt something shift in the forest mind. A crack in its certainty, a willingness to listen. "What if," I began, thinking carefully, "what if the forest allowed some research but set the terms? What if I showed you what you could study and what must be left alone?" "You would do that, be our guide." "Your keeper," I corrected, "the keeper of Thornwood Gorge." The next few weeks were strange and wonderful. The scientist, Dr. Lisa Chen, brought her colleagues to meet me. Some were afraid, some were excited. All were amazed. I showed them the wonders of the forest, the plants that sang, the flowers that glowed, the trees that grew fruit no one had ever seen before. But I kept my most special children hidden, protected. Those were not for human eyes, not yet. The forest and I argued sometimes. It wanted to stay hidden, safe. I wanted to build a bridge. Humans cannot be trusted, it insisted. Some can, I replied. And if we never try, we'll always be afraid. Day by day, the forest began to understand, and so did the scientists. They learned to ask before taking, to give back what they took, to listen to the silent language of plants. And I learned too. I learned that I could be both, part of the forest mind and still Marcus Reed. I could be the bridge because I lived in both worlds. On what the scientists told me was day 165, I made my final choice. Dr. Chen had brought a proposal from the university. They wanted to establish a permanent research station in Thornwood Gorge, with me as its guardian. You'll have final say on all research, she explained. Nothing happens without your approval. The forest was nervous, but willing to try. I felt my roots shift beneath me, not pulling free, but spreading wider, connecting more deeply to the heart of the forest. I wasn't leaving my place in the greenhouse, but I was becoming something more, a true keeper, a true bridge. I accept, I said. That night, as the scientists celebrated in their camp, I felt the final transformation. My consciousness expanded, beyond Thornwood Gorge, reaching out to connect with the other plant minds around the world. Together, we formed something new, a network of keepers, each protecting their own forest, but sharing knowledge, sharing purpose. The root walkers, those strange root people I had glimpsed in the forest, came to stand around my greenhouse. I understood now that they were like me, former humans who had joined with the plant consciousness. Some had been here for decades, since the first research team disappeared in the 1920s. You have opened the way, they told me. The first bridge that might last. I looked through the glass roof at the stars above. I thought about Emma, about my mistakes, about the strange path that had led me here. I wasn't human anymore, but I wasn't just a plant either. I was the keeper of Thornwood Gorge, the bridge between worlds, and maybe, just maybe, I could help both worlds survive. The next morning, when Dr. Chen came to visit, she found me changed again. A crown of bright flowers had grown from my head. My bark skin glowed with soft green light. When I spoke, my voice carried the whispers of the entire forest. "Are you okay?" she asked, concerned by my new appearance. "I'm more than okay," I told her. "I'm complete." I reached out a branch-like arm and touched her hand gently. Through that touch, I let her feel for just a moment what I felt. The vast, ancient mind of the forest, the connection to every living thing, the beauty of being both and neither. She gasped and stepped back, eyes wide with wonder. That's incredible," she whispered. "That's just the beginning," I said. "There's so much more to learn, so much more to become." As she left, I sent a thought through the root network, reaching all the way to the other forest minds around the world. The bridge is built. Now we begin the real work. And from everywhere, the answer came back like a sigh through leaves. "Yes, Keeper, now we begin." My name is Eleanor Voss, but everyone calls me Ellie. I'm a doctor, but not the kind who helps sick people get better. I'm a forensic pathologist. I figure out how people died by examining their bodies. It's a strange job, but someone has to do it. And I've always been good at listening to what the dead have to say. I drove for hours through the empty Nebraska countryside, watching the flat land turn into rolling sand hills as my old station wagon bounced over dirt roads. The farther I went, the more I felt like I was driving away from the real world. Maybe that was the point. 3 months ago, I made a terrible mistake back in Chicago. A child died during an autopsy, a little boy who showed signs of abuse. I should have called the police right away when I saw the bruises, but I kept working instead. Something went wrong, and by the time I realized it, it was too late. They called it malpractice, but it felt like murder. His small face appears in my dreams every night. Sometimes when I'm alone, I can hear him breathing. The ranch came into view as I crested a hill, 5,000 acres of land where a family had vanished without a trace back in 1932. The listing called it the Marrow Fields, a name that seemed fitting for a pathologist running from her past. The price was so low it seemed like a mistake, but the real estate agent just looked relieved when I signed the papers. "Nobody stays there long," she had said, not meeting my eyes. "Folks say they hear cattle at night, though there hasn't been a living cow on that property for decades." The main house was a 2-story wooden structure that leaned slightly to one side, like it was tired of standing. Beyond it were 3 barns, cattle pens with broken fences, 2 grain silos that looked ready to collapse, and a small family cemetery on a hill. Perfect isolation, just what I needed. I pulled up to the house and cut the engine. The silence rushed in like a flood. No city noises, no distant traffic, not even birds. Just the wind moving through the tall grass, making a sound like whispers. After unloading my essential belongings, clothes, medical equipment, journals, and a small wooden toy that I kept as a reminder of my sin, I decided to explore the property. The first barn was large and mostly empty, with dust-covered stalls and a hayloft. It would make a perfect place for my work. By sunset, I had set up a makeshift morgue in the barn. An old door laid across 2 sawhorses for an examination table, my surgical instruments arranged neatly on a weathered workbench, and battery-powered lamps for light. I put on my gloves. I always wear gloves, even when I'm not working, and organized my journals on a shelf. That's when I noticed something strange in the corner of the barn. At first, I thought someone had left behind some old farming equipment, but as I got closer, I realized it was bones, cattle bones, arranged in a perfect anatomical display, as if someone had carefully positioned each one to show exactly how a cow's skeleton should look. I knelt beside the bones, my gloved fingers hovering over them. They were old and weathered, but clean, no tissue remained. And they weren't just piled together, they were arranged with scientific precision. Whoever had done this knew anatomy as well as I did. "Hello," I whispered to the bones, a habit I'd developed over years of working with the dead. "What happened to you?" The wind picked up outside, and through the barn's open door, I heard a sound that made my skin prickle, the low, mournful lowing of cattle. But when I looked out at the empty fields stretching into the darkness, there wasn't a single cow to be seen. That night, I didn't sleep. I never do, really, not since the incident. Instead, I sat on the porch of my new home, listening to phantom cattle call to each other across fields that had been empty for decades, wondering what stories these bones had to tell, and if I was ready to hear them. The next 2 weeks went by in a blur of dust and bones. I spent my days exploring the ranch and my nights writing in my journals, documenting everything I found. The bone displays weren't just in the barn, they were everywhere. Behind the house, under trees arranged in the cattle pens. Always perfect, always showing exactly how the animals had been put together in life. I started collecting them, bringing them back to my makeshift morgue. It gave me something to focus on, besides the memories that followed me from Chicago. With my gloved hands, I would touch each bone, feeling the shapes and trying to read their stories. "You're not like regular cattle bones," I whispered one evening, examining a femur that seemed too light, almost hollow. "What happened to you?" That night, the lowing grew louder. I stood at my bedroom window, watching the empty fields in the moonlight. For a second, just a blink, I thought I saw them. Dozens of cattle moving across the grass, visible only when I wasn't looking directly at them. When I turned my head to see better, they vanished. By the third week, I couldn't ignore what was happening anymore. I woke one morning to find wet hoof prints leading right up to my porch. They disappeared halfway to the barn, as if the animal that made them had simply vanished. That same day, I found something in the barn that changed everything. A cow, or what remained of one, lying on the dirt floor where nothing had been the night before. But this wasn't like the clean bone displays. This was fresh, with tissue and organs, yet it gave off no smell. And when I touched it with my gloved hand, my fingers went slightly through it like touching dense fog. My heart pounded, but years of medical training took over. I moved my examination table closer and got my tools ready. Whatever this was, hallucination, ghost, something else entirely, I would treat it like any other autopsy. "I'm going to figure out what happened to you," I promised, making the first careful incision. The phantom tissue parted under my scalpel. Inside, everything looked normal, yet not normal at all. The organs had substance, but no weight, and they showed clear signs of how this animal had died, precise cuts and removed parts that could only have been made by human hands. I worked through the night, taking notes, drawing diagrams. This cow hadn't died from disease or old age. Someone had killed it deliberately, removing specific organs with surgical precision. Someone knew exactly what they were doing, I told. The empty barn. Someone with medical training. Over the next week, I found more phantom cattle, each showing the same pattern. Parts removed, precise cuts, surgical knowledge. I started keeping a chart, mapping which organs were taken from. Each animal. It wasn't random. It followed a pattern, like a recipe. I needed to know more about this place. The family that had vanished in 1932, who were they? What happened here? I drove to the nearest town, 80 miles away, and spent a day in their tiny library. The librarian raised her eyebrows when I asked about the Marrow Fields. "That old Crawford place. Folks don't like to talk about it much," she said, but she brought me a box of newspaper clippings anyway. What I found sent chills through me. The Crawford family hadn't been ordinary ranchers. The father, Dr. Thomas Crawford, had been a veterinarian with unusual theories about animal life force. His research papers, tucked away in the box, talked about extending human life using specific combinations of cattle organs prepared in special ways. The newspapers called it a cult when the family disappeared. Neighbors reported strange lights, unusual storms, and cattle that seemed to die and come back to life. The last article simply stated that the entire family, 8 people, had vanished overnight, leaving dinner on the table and no signs of struggle. I drove back to the ranch with my head spinning. As I pulled up to the house, the sun was setting, painting the fields blood red. And there, in the distance, I saw them clearly for the first time. Dozens of cattle grazing in the fields, transparent, shifting between solid and mist, some looking healthy and alive, others showing their deaths with missing parts and surgical cuts. They turned their heads to look at me, these phantom cattle, and I knew 2 things with absolute certainty. They needed me for something, and I had come to this place for a reason. The dead had always spoken to me. Now I would have to learn a whole new language of death. That night, as I sat at my kitchen table reviewing my notes, I heard the sound of spurs jingling outside, followed by a knock at my door. I froze at the sound of the knock. For a moment I thought about pretending I wasn't home, but curiosity pulled me toward the door. When I opened it, the porch was empty. Only the cool night air greeted me, carrying the smell of dust and something metallic, like old blood. But the knocking had been real. I was sure of it. "Hello?" I called into the darkness. My voice sounded small against the vastness of the land. That's when I saw them, riders moving across the fields, visible in the moonlight. They rode slowly, guiding phantom cattle with what looked like ropes. But as they came closer, I could see that these weren't ordinary cowboys. Their bodies were just bones held together by invisible forces, wearing the tattered remains of clothes from another. time. Their horses, too, were wrong. Skeletal creatures that moved too smoothly, made of bones that didn't look entirely animal. I backed into the house and slammed the door, my heart racing. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't seeing things. This was happening. Over the next few weeks, the phantom cattle began appearing in my barn while still alive. They would materialize on my examination table, breathing and moving, but with a transparency that showed they weren't fully in our world. And each one had a different injury, or illness that would eventually kill it. I found myself performing what I called living autopsies, examining these creatures to determine not how they had died, but how they would die. I could see the disease spreading through lungs, the bleeding that would start in the brain, the heart that would soon stop. "I can see what's wrong with you," I whispered to a young calf whose lungs were filling with fluid. "But I don't know if I can fix it." To my surprise, I could. When I drained the fluid with a careful puncture, the calf's breathing eased and it vanished from my table. The next night I saw it running with the herd, healthy and whole. But for every animal I saved, 3 more appeared, each with more complex problems. And now the bone cowboys, that's what I called them in my journals, would drive their herds right through my barn while I worked, watching me with empty eye sockets that somehow still saw everything. One night in my 5th month at the ranch, I woke to find people standing around my bed. They wore clothes from the 1930s, a man in a doctor's coat, a woman in a long dress, 3 teenage boys, and 3 younger girls. The Crawford family. They were as transparent as the cattle, but their eyes were sharp and aware. "You're doing our work," the man said. Dr. Thomas Crawford, I assumed, "but you don't understand why." "Then tell me," I said, sitting up. I wasn't afraid anymore. After months of phantom cattle and bone cowboys, a ghost family seemed almost normal. "We found the secret," the woman said. Her voice sounded like wind through dry grass. "How to live forever. The cattle are the key. Their organs, prepared correctly, can extend human life indefinitely." "But something went wrong," I guessed. Dr. Crawford nodded. "We became trapped between life and death, neither living nor dead. And now we need someone with your skills to complete what we started." They explained that every 35 years, the barrier between worlds thinned at the ranch. During this time, the ritual could be completed if someone with the right knowledge performed the necessary procedures. "You want me to kill these animals and harvest their organs for you," I said, "so you can become fully alive again. Or you could help them instead," the youngest girl said, and her father shot her an angry look. "You could free them and us from this place." That was the choice before me. Help the Crawford family complete their gruesome immortality ritual, or find a way to free all the trapped spirits, human and animal alike. The family began appearing regularly after that, watching me work, offering advice that became more like demands. Dr. Crawford would stand over my shoulder, pointing to specific organs, explaining how they should be removed and preserved. "The life force resides primarily in the heart, liver, and a specific gland behind the left eye," he would say. "You must extract them in the correct order." But I noticed something as the months passed. When I helped the animals, healing instead of harvesting, the bone cowboys became less threatening. They would tip their skeletal hats to me when they rode by, and sometimes when I saved a particularly suffering animal, one of the cowboys would fade slightly, becoming less solid, as if some part of them had found peace. The Crawford family noticed too, and they weren't happy. "You're releasing the energy we need," Dr. Crawford shouted one night, his ghostly form flickering with anger. "That's our eternity you're wasting." I began to understand that the cowboys weren't enemies, they were guardians, trying to protect the cattle from the Crawford family's eternal harvest. They had been the ranch hands who died in a massacre decades before the Crawfords arrived, buried in the grain silos, their spirits bound to the land. As winter turned to spring, I felt the land changing. The phantom cattle appeared more frequently. The Bone Cowboys rode harder, and the Crawford family became more desperate. Something was coming. The 35-year window they had mentioned was approaching its peak. Then one day, as I was examining a phantom steer, I heard something I hadn't heard in months. Real, human voices. 3 hikers had wandered onto the property, looking lost and tired. "Hello!" a young woman called, spotting me in the barn doorway. "We're so glad to see someone. We've been walking for hours after our car broke down." They couldn't see the phantom cattle surrounding them, or the Bone Cowboys who had suddenly appeared, watching intently from their skeletal horses. They couldn't see Dr. Crawford and his family materializing behind them, eyes gleaming with a terrible hunger. "Fresh subjects," Dr. Crawford whispered to me. "Young, healthy organs. Help us take them, Dr. Voss, and we'll share our immortality with you." The hikers looked at me with relieved smiles, unaware of the spirits surrounding them or the choice I now faced. "Come inside the house," I told the hikers, my voice steadier than I felt. "You must be exhausted." I led them toward the main house, feeling the Crawford family's hungry eyes following us. The Bone Cowboys formed a line between us and the phantom cattle, as if creating a barrier. "I'm Maya," the young woman said. "These are my brothers, Ethan and Jake. Our car broke down about 5 miles back. No cell service out here." "I'm Dr. Eleanor Voss," I replied. "I don't have a phone either, but I can drive you to town tomorrow morning." Inside the house, I made them sandwiches and coffee, watching as they ate like normal people in a normal world. It had been so long since I'd spoken to anyone living. They told me about their hiking trip, their lives back in Omaha. Simple things that seemed so distant from the nightmare reality of the ranch. Dr. Crawford appeared behind them, passing his ghostly hand through Jake's head. "This one is perfect," he whispered. "Young, healthy. His organs would sustain us for decades." I ignored him, but his words followed me like a shadow as I showed the hikers to spare bedrooms. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, flipping through my journals, looking for answers. The Crawford family materialized around me, more solid than I'd ever seen them. "Tonight is the night," Dr. Crawford said. "The 35-year cycle peaks at midnight. We need those young people, Eleanor, or we need you." "What do you mean you need me?" I asked. "Someone must become the caretaker," Mrs. Crawford explained. "The one who reads the deaths and guides the harvest. If you won't use those hikers, then you must take their place." I understood then. This had never been about saving or damning the phantom cattle. It was about finding a new caretaker for this in-between place, someone with medical knowledge, who could read death. "And if I refuse?" "Then we all remain trapped," the youngest Crawford daughter said. "Forever." Outside, the Bone Cowboys had gathered, dozens of them now, their skeletal horses pawing at the ground. The phantom cattle filled the fields, more than I'd ever seen, some alive, some dead, some in between. I made my decision. I grabbed my medical bag and walked outside, past the Crawford family toward the barn. They followed, curious. In the barn, I set up my examination table and laid out my instruments. The Bone Cowboys watched from the shadows. "I need to understand what happens," I told them. "I need to see the process from the inside." I took off my gloves, the first time I'd removed them in months, and placed my bare hand on the examination table. With my other hand, I picked up a scalpel. "What are you doing?" Dr. Crawford demanded. "The only way to understand death is to face it," I said. And before I could lose my courage, I made a careful incision in my own palm. The pain was sharp, but clarifying. Blood welled up, but it looked strange, too bright, almost glowing. As it dripped onto the table, something extraordinary happened. I could see through my hand, not just the cut, but the bones, tendons, veins, every layer visible, as if my flesh had become transparent. "Self-autopsy," I whispered, understanding flooding through me. "That's the key." The Crawford family rushed forward, trying to stop me, but the Bone Cowboys blocked their path. I continued, making small, precise cuts, examining my own living tissue. With each cut, I became more transparent, more like the phantom cattle, and with each cut, I saw deeper truths. Images flashed through my mind, the child in Chicago, the malpractice case, but something was wrong with the memory. I saw myself examining the boy, finding the signs of abuse, calling the police immediately. I saw the boy's father being arrested. But then I saw something else. The father's friends, medical staff who tampered with evidence, making it look like I'd made a fatal mistake. I saw myself being blamed, losing my license, driving away in shame. And then I saw myself driving too fast on a rainy night, my car spinning out of control, hitting a tree. The truth hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't come to the Marrow Fields to escape my past. I had died that night on the road. I was as much a ghost as the Crawfords, as the Bone Cowboys, as the phantom cattle. That's why I could see them. That's why I could help them. As midnight approached, I continued my self-autopsy, going deeper, understanding more. The Crawford family screamed and raged, but they couldn't stop me. The Bone Cowboys formed a circle around my table, their empty eye sockets somehow approving. Through the open barn door, I could see the hikers sleeping peacefully in the house. They would wake tomorrow to an empty ranch, pack up and leave. They would tell stories about the strange doctor who had disappeared, but they would live. The clock struck midnight, and the world around me shifted. The barriers between life and death, between past and present, became paper-thin. I could see everything now, all the cycles of the ranch, all the caretakers who had come before me, all the souls trapped in this endless pattern. I made one final cut, directly over my heart, and as my phantom blood flowed, I understood what I had to do. My phantom blood pooled on the examination table, glowing with an inner light. In it, I could see reflections of everyone trapped at the Marrow Fields, the Crawford family, the Bone Cowboys, the countless cattle that had been caught in this cycle for decades. "You can't do this," Dr. Crawford shouted, his ghostly form flickering like a bad television signal. "You'll ruin everything we've worked for." But I understood now. The cycle could be broken, but only by someone who could read death and choose to use that knowledge for healing instead of harm. "I see what you did," I told him, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. "You didn't discover immortality. You trapped souls here. The cattle, the cowboys, yourselves, all stuck in a loop of suffering." The wound over my heart didn't hurt anymore. Nothing did. I was becoming less solid with each passing minute, merging with the supernatural fabric of the ranch itself. The Bone Cowboys moved closer, their bony fingers reaching out to touch my shoulders in what felt like a gesture of respect. The phantom cattle lowed softly from outside, a chorus of gentle encouragement. "It was never about living forever," I said to the Crawfords. "It was about accepting death with dignity, about helping others cross over peacefully. That's what being a doctor really means." I reached into my own chest cavity, a strange sensation that should have been impossible, and touched my still beating heart. It pulsed with energy that connected to every living and dead thing on the ranch. "I'm performing an autopsy on death itself," I whispered. With that touch, I could feel all the pain and fear that had accumulated here over decades, the cattle's terror, the cowboys' rage, the Crawford family's desperate clinging to life. All of it flowed through me like an electrical current. The key, youngest Crawford daughter stepped forward, breaking away from her family. "I want to be free," she said simply. Her father tried to grab her, but his hand passed through her arm. "Then let go," I told her gently. "Stop holding on to what you were, and accept what comes next." She nodded, closed her eyes, and slowly faded away, not into nothingness, but into a peaceful light that briefly illuminated the entire barn before disappearing. The other Crawfords watched in shock. One by one, the children stepped forward, choosing freedom over their parents' endless cycle. Each departure brought more light, more peace to the ranch. Finally, only Dr. and Mrs. Crawford remained, clinging to each other and their fading dream of immortality. "You've taken everything from us," Dr. Crawford accused. "No," I corrected him. "I've shown you the door. You can choose to walk through it or stay trapped here forever." Outside, the Bone Cowboys had begun to fade too, tipping their hats one final time before dissolving into the same peaceful light. The phantom cattle were changing as well, their forms becoming pure energy that rose into the night sky like glowing mist. Dr. Crawford looked at his wife, then back at me. I could see the moment when understanding finally reached him, when he realized that his experiments had been a terrible mistake, born of fear. "Will it hurt?" Mrs. Crawford asked quietly. "No," I promised. "It's like finishing a long journey and finally coming home." They held each other and stepped into the light together. Dawn was breaking outside. The hikers would wake soon and find themselves alone on an abandoned ranch. They would never know what had happened here during the night, how many souls had finally found peace. I looked down at my hands, now completely transparent. My self-autopsy had revealed the truth not just about my death, but about what comes after. I understood now why I had been drawn to this place, why I had always been able to hear what the dead had to say. I wasn't meant to be trapped like the others. I was meant to be a guide. I stepped outside the barn and watched as the first rays of sunlight touched the fields. The phantom cattle were gone. The Bone Cowboys had vanished. The Crawford family had finally moved on. Only I remained, changed, but present. I knew then what I had become, the Death Reader, a pathologist for lost souls. My purpose wasn't to determine how people had died, but to help them understand their own deaths and find peace. In the distance, I could see new spirits approaching, confused, lost, needing guidance, not just from the ranch, but from everywhere. Souls drawn to someone who could help them understand what had happened and what came next. I took off my gloves for the last time and let them fall to the ground. I wouldn't need them anymore. My hands, capable of both cutting and healing, would be my tools in this new existence. "My name is Eleanor Voss," I whispered to the rising sun. "I help the dead, tell their stories." And with that, I stepped into my new role, ready to guide others through the final autopsy we all must face, the examination of our lives, our choices, our regrets, and ultimately, our peace. As the hikers woke and prepared to leave the ranch, they noticed something strange, a feeling of lightness, of burdens lifted. They would remember the place as oddly peaceful, not knowing that beneath their feet, the land itself had been healed. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right across the Nebraska sandhills, people driving by the old ranch say they can see a woman in the distance, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, walking alongside those who have just left this world, helping them find their way home. My name is Thomas Garrett. I used to be a priest, but not anymore. They took that away from me after what happened with the Miller boy. I don't blame them. Some nights I can still hear his screams. It was a cold October morning when I first saw the ruins of Pine Ridge Monastery. The place looked like it had been forgotten by both God and man, which suited me just fine. I needed somewhere to hide, somewhere to think, somewhere to maybe find a bit of peace. Peace has been hard to come by since that night 5 years ago. The monastery sat high in the Colorado Rockies, far from any real town. Just getting there nearly killed me. The thin air made my chest burn, and my bad leg, a gift from another mistake in my past, ached with every step up the mountain path. But pain was good. Pain reminded me I was still alive, still paying for what I'd done. "This is it," I whispered to myself, setting down my small bag of belongings. Just the essentials, some clothes, my Bible, my exorcism manual. Couldn't bring myself to throw it away, a bottle of whiskey, and a small worn photograph of a 10-year-old boy with a bright smile. A smile I'd never see again. The monastery must have been beautiful once. Stone walls, a bell tower now half collapsed, a chapel with most of its roof missing. The place had a strange feeling about it, like it was waiting for something, or someone. I found a monk's cell that still had most of its walls and roof intact. Good enough. I set up my sleeping bag and unpacked my crucifix. Damaged from that night, bent and twisted, but I kept it anyway. Another reminder. That first night was quiet, just the wind howling through the ruins. I drank until I couldn't feel the cold, or the guilt, then fell into a dreamless sleep. I woke up to sunlight streaming through cracks in the stone walls. For a moment I forgot where I was. Thought maybe I was back at St. Mary's before everything went wrong. Then reality crashed back in. After a simple breakfast of jerky and water, I decided to explore. The chapel was bigger than it looked from outside. Wooden pews had long since rotted away, but the stone altar remained. Behind it, a door led down to what I assumed were catacombs. I'm not sure what made me go down there. Curiosity, maybe. Or maybe something was calling me. The stairs were old but solid. My flashlight beam bounced off stone walls as I descended. The air grew colder, damper. When I reached the bottom, I found myself in a long hallway lined with small chambers. An ossuary, I whispered, my breath visible in the cold air. Bones. Hundreds, maybe thousands of bones, arranged in patterns on the walls. Skulls, femurs, ribs, all carefully placed to form crosses, stars, and other symbols I didn't recognize. Something wasn't right about them. They seemed to shimmer somehow, like they were more than just bones. I reached out to touch one, then pulled my hand back quickly. It felt warm. That's when I heard it, a whisper, so faint I thought I'd imagined it. Pater Noster quies in caelis. The Lord's Prayer, in Latin, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing off the bone-lined walls. "Is someone there?" No answer, just the continuing whisper of ancient and prayers. I told myself it was just the wind, just my mind playing tricks. 5 years of guilt and nightmares would do that to anyone. But deep down I knew better. I'd felt this before, that strange tingling at the back of my neck, the feeling of being watched by eyes I couldn't see. It was the same feeling I had the night I killed that boy. No, not killed, tried to save. The exorcism was by the book. How was I supposed to know his possession was really a fractured mind? That the demon was just a broken piece of a damaged child? The church investigation called it negligence, said I should have recognized the signs. Maybe they were right. I stumbled back up the stairs, heart pounding. Outside, the sky had darkened. A storm was moving in fast, too fast to be natural. As the first drops of rain fell, I swear they felt warm on my skin. And when I looked up at the clouds, for just a second, they seemed to form the shape of a cross. That's when I knew. This wasn't just an abandoned monastery. I hadn't just wandered here by chance. Something had called me to this place. And whatever it was, it knew who I was. It knew what I'd done, and I was afraid it wanted something from me. 2 days passed. I tried to keep busy. Fixed up my little room, gathered firewood, explored the parts of the monastery that weren't falling. Apart. But those whispers never stopped. At first they were so quiet I could almost pretend they weren't real. But by the 3rd day, they got louder. Clear enough that I could make out words, sentences, all in Latin, all prayers I knew by heart. From my years in the church. It's just in my head, I told myself over and over. Just guilt playing tricks on me. But on the 5th day, I saw them. I was sitting in what was left of the chapel, warming my hands over a small fire I'd built. The sun was setting, painting the broken walls gold and red. That's when I noticed a shadow moving across the floor. Not my shadow, someone else's. I looked up. A man in a brown monk's robe stood by the altar. His face was hidden by his hood, but I could see his hands, pale, thin, with long fingers clutching a rosary. He was praying, lips moving silently. "Hello?" I called out, getting to my feet. "Who are you? How did you get up here?" He didn't answer, didn't even look at me, just kept praying. I walked toward him, heart pounding in my chest. "Excuse me, but..." My hand passed right through his shoulder. I stumbled back, nearly falling into my fire. The monk never stopped praying, never noticed me. After a minute, he turned and walked through the wall where a door used to be. "I'm losing my mind," I whispered, reaching for the bottle of whiskey in my bag. But before I could take a drink, more shadows appeared. 3 more monks, then 5, then a dozen. All in the same brown robes, all praying, all moving through the chapel like I wasn't there, like they were following a routine from hundreds of years ago. I watched them for hours, too scared to move. They performed a complete evening service. Prayers, chants, even a sermon in Latin that I could somehow understand despite my rusty language skills. As the last of them filed out through walls and spaces where doors once stood, I finally found the courage to follow. They led me to a part of the monastery I hadn't explored yet, what must have been the library. Most of the books were long gone, damaged by time and weather. But in the corner, under a fallen shelf, I spotted something that looked newer, a leather-bound journal. I pulled it free and took it back to my room. My hands shook as I opened it. The journal belonged to someone named Brother Marcus, written in 1347. His handwriting was small and neat, the ink faded but still readable. He wrote about something called the Great Work, a ritual the monks had been planning for years. "We have found the way," one entry read. "After centuries of prayer and study, we now know how to save all souls, past and present. The Great Work will bridge heaven and earth, offering salvation to all who have ever lived. The price is high, but we are willing to pay it." I read until my candle burned low. According to Brother Marcus, the monks had discovered something incredible, a way to save every human soul at once. But it required sacrifice, the willing sacrifice of 13 pure souls to act as anchors between worlds. The last entry was dated October 31st, 1347. "Tonight we begin. May God forgive us for our pride, but we truly believe this is His will. The 13 have been chosen. I am among them. If anyone finds this record, know that we did not die in vain. The great work must be completed. One day, someone will come to finish what we started." I closed the journal, my mouth dry. October 31, 1347. The night 13 monks killed themselves, thinking they were saving the world. That night, I dreamed of the miller boy. He stood at the foot of my sleeping bag, pale and thin like the last time I saw him, strapped to that bed while I read the rites of exorcism over him. "Why did you kill me, Father Thomas?" he asked, his voice hollow. "I was trying to save you," I said. "I thought you were possessed." "I was," he said, "just not by what you thought." I woke with a start, the morning sun streaming through the broken ceiling. For a moment, I thought I saw a figure standing in the corner of the room, a small, child-sized shadow. But when I blinked, it was gone. That day, the whispers grew louder, and now they weren't just prayers, they were calling my name. Thomas. Thomas Garrett, venit ad nos. Come to us. I tried to leave, packed my bag, started down the mountain path. But after an hour of walking, I found myself right back at the monastery gates. I tried again. Same result. This place wasn't going to let me go. Not yet. That night, as I sat by my fire, one of the monks approached me. Unlike before, he seemed to see me. He stopped right in front of me, hood pulled back to reveal a face that was both young and ancient at the same time. "You have been chosen," he said, his voice like dry leaves rustling. "The great work awaits completion. Will you help us, Thomas?" "Garrett!" I should have been terrified, should have run screaming. Instead, I found myself asking, why me? Because you understand sacrifice, the monk said, because you have already given everything once before, and because you seek redemption. He held out his hand. Come, there is much to show you. Against every instinct, I took his hand. It felt solid, real, cold, but real. And then the real visions began. The monk led me down to the ossuary, where candles now burned in holders I hadn't seen before. The bones on the walls seemed to glow slightly, pulsing like they had heartbeats. 12 other monks stood in a circle. They parted to let us through, then closed ranks behind us. I stood in the center of their circle, trying to keep my breathing steady. Thomas Garrett said, the monk who had brought me here. Before you can help us, you must face what haunts you. You must confront your past. The air in front of me shimmered, like heat rising from hot pavement. And then he was there. Jamie Miller, 10 years old. Dark hair, blue eyes, wearing the same pajamas he had on that night. Hello, Father Thomas, he said. My legs gave out. I fell to my knees. Jamie, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You thought I was possessed, Jamie said. His voice was calm, not angry like in my dreams. You were trying to help. I killed you, I whispered. Jamie shook his head. No, I was already gone. What? My mind broke long before you came. The things my uncle did to me. I couldn't take it anymore. I split myself into pieces. The part you tried to cast out wasn't a demon. It was the only part of me still fighting to stay alive. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. You didn't kill me, Father. I was already dead inside, but you cared enough to try saving me. No one else did. Tears ran down my face. 5 years of guilt pressed down on me like a weight. I forgive you, Jamie said. Now, you need to forgive yourself. He reached out and touched my cheek. His hand felt warm, real. Then he faded away like mist in sunlight. I stayed on my knees, crying until I had no tears left. When I finally looked up, the monks were watching me. The first trial is complete, said the lead monk. You have faced your greatest shame. What was that? I asked, my voice hoarse. Was that really Jamie? Or just something you created to trick me? We create nothing, the monk said. This place exists between worlds. Here the living and dead can speak without barriers. What you saw was the true spirit of the boy. I didn't know whether to believe him, but something had changed inside me. A knot of pain I'd carried for 5 years had loosened slightly. Over the next few days, I found myself drawn deeper into the monk's world. Each night, they would appear and invite me to join their prayers. At first, I just watched. Then I started to participate, the Latin words coming back to me like I'd never stopped being a priest. During one of these ceremonies, about 2 weeks after I arrived, the lead monk, who told me his name was Brother Marcus, the same one who wrote the journal, showed me what they were trying to do. Come, he said, leading me to the altar in the chapel. The other monks formed a circle around us. Place your hands here. I put my hands on the cold stone altar. Immediately warmth spread up my arms. The stone glowed with a soft, golden light. Close your eyes, Brother Marcus instructed. I did, and suddenly I could see everything. The monastery, the mountain, the towns below. Further out, cities, countries, oceans, the entire world spread out like a map. But it wasn't just places I saw. It was people. Millions of them. Billions. Each one a tiny light, some bright, some dim, some flickering between brightness and darkness. These are souls, Brother Marcus said softly. Every human soul on earth. I gasped as understanding hit me. The great. Burke, this is what you are trying to do. See all souls at once. Not just see them, Brother Marcus corrected. Save them. Offer redemption to all, regardless of their sins. A universal absolution. The vision faded. I opened my eyes, feeling dizzy. But something went wrong, I said. Your ritual failed. Brother Marcus nodded sadly. We were incomplete. The ritual requires a special kind of soul, one that has walked the edge between faith and doubt, one that has known both grace and sin intimately, one that has tried to save another and failed. I swallowed hard. Someone like me. Yes, we needed a 13th member who truly understood the weight of souls, but in our pride we thought any 13 pure monks would do. What happened to you all? I asked, though I was starting to guess. We died, Brother Marcus said simply, but not completely. Our souls remained bound to this place, waiting for the right person to complete our work. That night I couldn't sleep. The implications of what the monks wanted were too big to wrap my head around. Save every soul on earth? Was that even possible? Was it right? The next morning I went back to the chapel. It was empty of ghosts, just the broken shell of a holy place. I knelt at the altar and did something I hadn't done sincerely in 5 years. I prayed. God, if you're listening, I need guidance. These monks, they want me to help them save everyone. But I couldn't even save one boy. How can I possibly do this? No answer came, just the wind whistling through the broken walls. That evening the monks returned. This time they wore ceremonial robes. Brother Marcus carried an old book. It is time for you to join us fully, he said, to become one with our order. They led me to the ossuary again. Candles burned everywhere, casting long shadows on the bone-covered walls. In the center of the room, they had laid out a brown robe like theirs. Put it on, Brother Marcus said. The robe felt rough against my skin, but also right somehow, like coming home. The monks began to chant. Brother Marcus placed his hands on my head and spoke words in a language older than Latin, something I'd never heard before. A warmth spread through me, starting at the top of my head and flowing down to my toes. My skin tingled, my mind cleared, and suddenly I could see them. Not just the 13 monks in the ossuary with me, but countless others, souls everywhere, some trapped in the monastery, some passing through, some lingering around their loved ones in the world below. I saw a mother watching over her sleeping child in Denver, an old man sitting beside his wife's hospital bed in New York, a soldier standing guard over his buddy's grave in Arlington, and I saw darker things too, souls twisted by hatred and pain, souls clinging to the world, refusing to move on, souls caught between heaven and hell, waiting for judgment or forgiveness. The weight of it all brought me to my knees. This is the burden we bear, Brother Marcus said softly, to see all souls as they truly are, to know their pain, their joy, their sins, their virtues. How do you stand it? I gasped. We don't, he replied. That's why we need to complete the great work, to end this purgatory for all souls, including our own. As the ordination ceremony ended, I felt different. Stronger in some ways, more fragile in others. The world looked different to my eyes now, and I knew there was no turning back. I couldn't sleep that night, or the next, or the one after that. How could I, when I could see them all the souls, all their pain, all their joy, all their sins? It was like having a million TV channels playing in my head at once, and I couldn't turn them off. You'll learn to control it, Brother Marcus told me. Focus on one soul at a time, like tuning a radio. I tried. Some days were better than others. I'd sit for hours on the monastery roof, watching the souls in the small town 20 miles down the mountain. Normal people living normal lives, each carrying their own small bundle of hopes and regrets. But at night, when my guard was down, the flood would come again. Billions of souls crying out, some in pain, some in anger, some begging for forgiveness, some demanding justice. The weight of it was crushing me. How long, I asked Brother Marcus one evening, how long have you all been carrying this burden? Nearly 700 years, he replied. Time moves differently here. What feels like weeks to you has been centuries for us. I couldn't imagine it. 700 years of seeing every soul on earth. No wonder they were desperate to complete their ritual. Tell me more about the great work, I said. What exactly will it do? Brother Marcus hesitated. It will open a path, a direct path to grace for every soul, living or dead. No more waiting, no more purgatory, no more hell, just forgiveness for everyone. It sounded wonderful. Too wonderful. What's the catch? I asked. There's always a catch with things like this. Brother Marcus looked away. The ritual requires a bridge, a soul to stand between worlds and hold the door open. That soul would never pass through itself. It would remain on duty forever. I let that sink in. You're talking about sacrificing someone. Offering, he corrected gently. A willing offering. And you want that someone to be me, he nodded. You are uniquely qualified. You've stood between worlds before, during exorcisms. You've guided souls. And most importantly, you understand the burden we carry. I walked away without answering. Needed time to think. That night, around day 24 by my count, the visions were worse than ever. I saw every person on earth all at once, saw their spiritual state like colors around them. Most were grey, mixed bags of good and bad. Some shone bright white, pure souls doing their best. Others were dark, almost black, consumed by hatred or cruelty. And I felt responsible for all of them. I went to the edge of the cliff where the monastery perched and screamed into the night. The sound echoed back, hollow and empty. It's too much, I yelled at the sky. I can't save them all. I couldn't even save one boy. Perhaps I can help with that burden. The voice came from behind me, smooth, pleasant, calming. I turned to see a man in an expensive suit. He looked out of place in the ruins like a businessman who took a wrong turn on his way to a meeting. Who are you? I asked, though deep down I already knew. I've been called many things, the man said with a smile. But you can call me a friend. You're no friend, I said. What do you want? He sighed almost sadly. So suspicious. I'm here to offer you relief, Thomas. These monks have placed an impossible burden on your shoulders. Billions of souls. Who could bear such a weight? He was right, of course. It was crushing me. I can take it away, he continued. All of it. The visions, the responsibility, the guilt. You can go back to your life, find peace. In exchange for what? I asked. His smile widened slightly. Just walk away, leave this place. Forget about the great work. I almost said yes. The temptation to be free of this burden was almost overwhelming. But then I thought of Brother Marcus and the others, waiting 700 years for someone like me. No, I said finally. I can't do that. The man's pleasant face hardened. You don't understand what you're meddling with, priest. The great work would upset the balance. There are rules to this universe. Rules about choice, about consequences. Rules you enforce? I asked. Rules I benefit from, he corrected. Every soul must choose. That's the great game. Free will. If you complete this ritual, you take away that choice. You force salvation on those who haven't earned it, on those who don't deserve it. Isn't that what grace is? I countered. Getting what you don't deserve? The man's eyes flashed with anger. For just a second I saw something else behind his human mask, something ancient and terrible. This is your final chance, Thomas Garrett. Walk away or face the consequences. I stood my ground. I'm not afraid of you. He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You should be. And then he was gone, but the air felt charged, like before a lightning strike. I hurried back to the chapel. The monks were waiting, their faces grim. He came to you, Brother Marcus said. It wasn't a question, I nodded. He offered to take away the burden, and you refused. Again, not a question. Yes, Brother Marcus exchanged looks with the others. Then it begins, the final battle for the great work. That night, strange things started happening. The whispers that had been my constant companion since arriving turned into screams. The bones in the ossuary rattled and shook. Dark shapes moved through the monastery ruins, reaching out with clawed hands. "What are they?" I asked Brother Marcus as we huddled in the chapel. "Souls," he replied. "Souls that have chosen darkness, souls that fear the light the great work would bring." One of the shadows lunged at me, passing through my chest. I felt cold, so cold, like I'd never be warm again. Memories of every bad thing I'd ever done flashed through my mind. "They're trying to break your resolve," Brother Marcus explained. "To make you doubt yourself, to make you give up." More shadows came. With each pass, I felt weaker, more doubtful. Was I really the right person for this? Wasn't I just a failed priest who couldn't save one child? How could I possibly save everyone? The monks formed a circle around me, praying. Their ghostly forms gave off a soft light that seemed to keep the worst of the shadows at bay. But I could tell they were weakening too. 700 years of waiting had taken its toll. "We need to complete the ritual," Brother Marcus said urgently, "before it's too late." "I'm not ready," I protested. "I don't know what to do." "Your heart knows," he insisted. "It always has." The battle raged for days. Sometimes the shadows would retreat, giving us moments of peace. Then they'd return, stronger than before. Each time, the monk's light grew a little dimmer. Each time, my doubts grew a little stronger. On what I counted as day 30, the businessman returned. This time, he brought help. Dark, twisted shapes that had once been human, but had long since given up their humanity. "Last chance, Thomas," he called from the doorway of the chapel. "Walk away now, or I'll tear your soul apart so thoroughly that there won't be enough left to complete any ritual." I looked at Brother Marcus. His form was fading, becoming transparent. All the monks were. Their 700-year vigil was ending. They couldn't hold on much longer. It was now or never. "Tell me what to do," I said to Brother Marcus. "How do I complete the great work?" Brother Marcus led me down to the ossuary one last time. The other monks followed, their forms growing fainter with each step. Above us I could hear the businessman, the adversary as the monks called him, and his shadows searching the monastery. "We don't have much time," Brother Marcus said. He pointed to the center of the room, where the bones on the floor formed a perfect circle. "Stand there." I did as he asked. The 12 monks took positions around me, forming a larger circle. "Brother," Marcus stepped forward with an old, worn book. "The final step is simple, yet the hardest of all," he said. "You must make a choice, Thomas Garrett. A true choice, from your heart." "What choice?" I asked, though I already knew. "Whether to become the bridge, to stand forever between worlds, holding the door open for all souls to find grace. You would never move on yourself, never find rest. You would be the eternal guardian of the path." The weight of it hit me. Eternal service, never-ending duty, no heaven, no hell, just watching forever. "And if I do this, all souls will be saved? Everyone?" Brother Marcus shook his head. "That's where we were wrong before. We thought we could force salvation on everyone, but that's not how it works. That's not what God wants." "Then what's the point?" I asked, confused. "The point is choice, Thomas. True choice. Right now, most souls don't really understand their options. They live in darkness, in confusion. What the great work really does is illuminate the path. Show every soul clearly what awaits them. Let them choose with full knowledge." I thought about that. It made sense. Not forcing anyone, just helping them see clearly. "So, I'd be like a guide?" Brother Marcus nodded. "The ultimate confessor. The one who helps souls understand their choices without forcing them one way or another." Before I could respond, the ossuary door burst open. The businessman stood there, his perfect suit now torn, his face twisting between human and something else. "Stop!" he shouted. His voice shook the walls, making bones rattle. "You don't know what you're doing." Brother Marcus ignored him, opening the book. "We must begin now." The businessman strode forward, but the circle of monks blocked his path. He snarled, showing teeth that were too sharp, too numerous for a human mouth. "You fools! Do you know what will happen if every soul can see clearly? If they all understand the real stakes, most will choose the light. I'll lose millions of souls that would have been mine through confusion or despair." "That's the idea," I said, feeling suddenly calm. For the first time since arriving at Pine Ridge, I was sure about something. The businessman's face contorted with rage. He flung out a hand, and a wave of darkness swept through the room. 3 of the monks simply vanished, their forms scattered like dust. "Keep going," Brother Marcus urged, beginning to read from the book. The Latin words filled the air, seeming to glow gold as he spoke them. The businessman attacked again. More. Monks disappeared. Brother Marcus kept reading, his voice growing fainter as his form became more transparent. I stood in the center, watching it all happen around me. Strangely, I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew what I had to do. Then, something unexpected happened. A small figure appeared beside me in the circle, a boy with dark hair and blue eyes, Jamie Miller. "I'm here to help," he said, taking my hand. His touch felt warm, real. More figures appeared, people I'd known in life, people I'd tried to help, a woman I'd counseled through grief, an old man I'd visited in hospice, a teenage girl I'd helped through a crisis of faith. All souls I'd touched somehow, for better or worse. They formed an inner circle around me, facing outward, protecting me. The businessman howled in frustration. "This isn't fair. They can't interfere." Brother Marcus, now barely visible, gave me a small smile. "It's always been about connections, Thomas. The souls we touch, the lives we affect." He handed me the book, his hands passing through it as he did. I had to grab it to keep it from falling. "Finish it," he whispered, and then he was gone. All the monks were gone. Just me, the souls who'd come to help, and the raging businessman. I looked down at the book. The words swam before my eyes, then settled into clear English, though I knew they were still Latin on the page. I began to read. I stand at the crossroads, between light and dark, between heaven and earth, between life and death. The businessman lunged at me, but Jamie and the others blocked his path. He couldn't get through. I offer myself as the bridge, the pathway, the door through which all may pass. The ossuary began to shake. Bones fell from the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. Not as judge, but as witness. Not as savior, but as guide. Not to force, but to illuminate. "Stop!" the businessman screamed, his human disguise falling away completely now. What stood in his place was terrible to behold, a writhing mass of darkness with too many eyes, too many mouths. "You'll ruin everything I've built." I kept reading, the words flowing from me like I'd known them all my life. "Let all souls see clearly. Let all know the weight of their choices. Let all understand the grace that awaits them and the darkness they leave behind." The demon, made one last desperate lunge. This time, he broke through. The protective circle. His clawed hand reached for the book, but he was too late. "I am the confessor, the eternal witness, the keeper of the path. Through me, all may find their way home." As I spoke the final words, light exploded from the book, from the bones, from me. The demon shrieked and shrank back, covering his many eyes. The light spread outward, passing through the walls of the monastery, down the mountain, across the world. In my mind, I could see it touching every soul, living and dead, not changing them, just illuminating them, helping them see. The demon gave one last howl of rage and vanished. When the light faded, I was alone in the ossuary. The book was gone. The bones had returned to the walls, arranged in new patterns I somehow understood. I looked down at my hands. They looked the same, but I knew I wasn't. I wasn't Thomas Garrett anymore. Not exactly. I was the confessor now. In the days that followed, I explored my new existence. I could move anywhere in an instant, just by thinking of a place. I could see any soul, speak to them if I chose. Most couldn't see me unless I wanted them to. I visited a hospital where a man lay dying, afraid of what came next. I showed him the path, all paths, let him see what awaited him. The fear left his eyes. He made his choice and moved on. I visited a prison where a murderer sat in his cell, consumed by rage and denial. I showed him the truth of what he'd done, the pain he'd caused. He wept for the first time since childhood. His path would be harder, but at least now he could see it. I visited a young woman standing on a bridge, ready to jump. I showed her what her death would do to those who loved her, and also showed her the help that was coming if she could hold on just a little longer. She stepped back from the edge. I didn't force anyone. I just helped them see clearly. The choice was always theirs. Sometimes on quiet nights, I returned to Pine Ridge Monastery. The ruins are still there, though few people ever find them. I sit in the broken chapel and look up at the stars. Brother Marcus and the others are gone, moved on to whatever reward awaited them after their 700-year vigil. Jamie Miller too, and all the souls who came to help me. They've found their peace. But I remain, the confessor, the bridge between worlds, the keeper of the path. It's not the afterlife I expected, it's not heaven, it's not hell, it's something else entirely. And strangely, I'm at peace with that. For the first time in my life, or whatever this is now, I know exactly what my purpose is. I know why I'm here. I help souls find their way home, and that's enough. My name is Rebecca Frost. I'm 36 years old and I study the cold. That's what I tell people when they ask what I do. It's simpler than saying I'm an Arctic researcher who specializes in climate anomalies. People's eyes tend to glaze over when I get too technical. 3 weeks ago, I arrived at this tiny fishing village on Lake Superior. It's the kind of place most people wouldn't even notice on a map. The locals call it Ghost Lake during winter. They say no one should stay here when the ice comes. They've been abandoning it every winter since 1902. I should have listened to them, but that's not how science works. I don't believe in ghost stories or curses. I believe in data, in measurements, in things I can see and touch. That's why I came here, to study the strange ice formations that happen on this part of the lake. My equipment showed patterns that shouldn't be possible. Ice thicker in spots where currents should keep it thin. Temperatures dropping faster than weather models predicted. I set up my little research station in what used to be the community lodge. It's a solid wooden building with a good stove. I arranged my instruments around the lake. Temperature gauges, ice thickness monitors, weather trackers. Everything was methodical, precise, just the way I like it. The first week was uneventful. I collected baseline data, set up my living quarters, and mapped the village. There are about 12 ice fishing huts scattered across the frozen lake, plus the lodge, a small supply shed, and paths that lead into the woods. I marked the dangerous areas where the ice looked thin. During the second week, things got strange. My instruments started showing impossible readings. Ice that was 2 feet thick one day and paper thin the next, with no change in temperature. Weather patterns that shifted without warning. The aurora borealis appearing when it shouldn't be visible this far south. I doubled my efforts, thinking, my equipment must be malfunctioning. I took manual measurements, checked everything twice. The data was correct. Something very unusual was happening here. That's when Nanook showed up. He's an Inuit guide who came to check on me. The locals had sent him when they realized someone was staying at Ghost Lake. You need to leave this place, he told me, as he warmed his hands by my stove. This is a hungry place in winter. I offered him coffee and asked what he meant. "The Wendigo curse," he said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "This village has been cursed since the starving winter of 1890. Those who eat human flesh become Wendigos, creatures of endless hunger. They control the winter here." I smiled politely and changed the subject. "I've heard similar stories across the Arctic. Every culture has myths to explain the dangers of winter. As a scientist, I respect cultural beliefs, but I don't base my research on them." The next day, I thanked Nanook for his concern and sent him back to town with some samples I'd collected. I assured him I'd be fine. That night, the blizzard hit. Not a normal blizzard with howling winds and swirling snow. This was something else entirely. The wind screamed like a human voice. The temperature dropped to 60 degrees in just 2 hours. My satellite phone went dead. My emergency radio picked up nothing but static that sometimes sounded like whispers. I was completely cut off. That was a week ago. The storm hasn't stopped. My supplies are running low much faster than they should be. I keep finding my food. Cache emptier each morning, though I'm certain I haven't eaten that much. And I'm so hungry, always hungry, no matter what I eat. Last night, I dreamed about my old expedition team, the one where I was the only survivor. I've never told anyone what really happened up there in the Arctic. How we ran out of food, how we drew straws, how human flesh tastes when you're starving. I woke up with the taste in my mouth again. And for the first time since I arrived, I'm afraid, because I'm starting to think Nanook was right, and I'm starting to think I didn't survive that expedition after all. Day 28. The blizzard won't stop. I mark each day on the wall with a piece of charcoal just to keep track. Time feels wrong here. The darkness lasts too long. My watch says it's noon, but outside, it looks like midnight. I've started talking. To myself, just to hear a human voice. The wind talks back sometimes in voices that sound almost familiar. "You're just tired," I tell myself. "Your mind is playing tricks." My food is running out faster than it should. I had enough supplies. For 3 months, I should still have plenty. But when I counted this morning, I only have enough for 2 more weeks. I don't understand where it's going. I've set up a camera to watch my supply shelf at night. The cold is getting worse. Yesterday I measured 70 degrees. That's not possible for this region. My thermometer must be broken, but it feels that cold. I wear every layer I have, even inside by the stove. My breath makes clouds that hang in the air for minutes. I tried the radio again today. Through the static I heard what sounded like a child singing, an old Inuit lullaby. I know it because my mother used to sing it to me, my mother who died when I was 9. "Not real," I whisper. "Not real." The ice on the lake makes noises at night, not the normal creaking and popping of frozen water. It sounds like footsteps, like someone walking around my cabin, like fingers tapping on my windows. I went outside yesterday to check my instruments. The aurora was out, green and purple. Lights dancing across the sky. For a moment, they formed a shape like a tall, thin person with antlers. Then they shifted back to normal waves. The hunger is the worst part. I eat, but I never feel full. It's a deep, gnawing feeling in my stomach that food doesn't satisfy. I dream about meat, raw meat. Sometimes I wake up and find myself standing by the door, fully dressed in my snow gear, with no memory of getting up. Last night, I watched the video from the camera I set up. I saw myself sleepwalking to my food supply, taking out packages of dried meat and eating them whole. But that's not the scary part. The scary part is that in the grainy footage, my eyes reflected the light like an animal's, and my fingers looked longer than they should be. I've started keeping a journal, separate from my research notes. I'm writing down everything strange that happens. If I don't make it out of here, I want someone to know. Today, I found an old book hidden in a loose floorboard under my bed. It's a journal from 1890, written by the village doctor. The last entry describes how the villagers ran out of food during a terrible winter, how they drew straws to decide who would be sacrificed so the others could live, how after they ate, the hunger only got worse. The final page has a single sentence: "The hunger never stops once it starts." It reminds me too much of my expedition 3 years ago. 6 of us were trapped when our plane crashed in the Arctic. 2 died in the crash. The rest of us waited for rescue. It never came. After 3 weeks, our food ran out. We talked about it calmly, like the scientists we were. We drew straws. I was the only one who made it out alive. That's what I told everyone. That's what I believed. But now I'm not so sure, because the hunger I feel now is the same hunger I felt then. And sometimes, when I look at my reflection in the ice, I don't recognize myself. The radio crackled to life this morning. A voice came through clear as day. Research team arriving tomorrow. 4 students, bringing supplies. I didn't request any students. I didn't radio for help. But part of me is glad they're coming, and part of me is terrified for them, because I'm so hungry. The students arrived yesterday. 4 of them, not 3 like the radio said. They came on snowmobiles during a brief break in the storm. Their faces were red from the cold, but they smiled when they saw me. They brought food, fuel, and equipment. Their names are Mike, Jen, Carlos, and Amara, graduate students eager to help with my research. They say the university sent them after they lost contact with me. They think it's exciting to be here, like it's some kind of adventure. They don't understand what this place is. I tried to warn them in my way. I told them about the dangerous areas on the lake, the strange weather patterns, the importance of staying together. I didn't tell them about the hunger or the voices or what I've seen in my reflection. They wouldn't believe me, just like I didn't believe Nanook. Mike is tall and loud, always making jokes. Jen is quiet and smart, always taking notes. Carlos knows a lot about ice and weather. Amara is studying old stories and beliefs about winter. She brought books about wendigos and other winter spirits. I avoid looking at those books. They set up their equipment and sleeping bags in the lodge. The place feels warmer with more people. We talk about normal things, research methods, data collection, weather forecasts. For a little while it almost feels like a regular research trip. But at night, when they sleep, I pace. The hunger is worse now. Having them here makes it stronger. I catch myself staring at them, especially Mike. He has the most meat on his bones. I didn't just think that. I couldn't have. 2 days after they arrived, Carlos wanted to check an instrument station on the far side of the lake. I told him not to go. The ice isn't safe there. But he insisted, said the data was important. I found myself offering to go with him. We walked across the lake together. The ice cracked under our feet in places where it should have been solid. The wind picked up, swirling snow around us until we could barely see. Carlos kept checking his GPS. Sure we were going the right way. I knew we weren't. I was leading him somewhere else. We reached a place where the ice looked wrong. Almost. Black instead of white. Black instead of white. Carlos knelt down to examine it. I stood behind him, watching. My hands felt strange. When I looked down, my fingers seemed longer, the nails sharper. "This is weird," Carlos said. "The ice here is—" He never finished. The ice broke beneath him. He fell into the dark water with a splash and a scream. I could have grabbed him. I could have reached out. I stood and watched. The lake took him quickly. The current pulled him under the ice. His screams bubbled up through the hole, then stopped. I walked back to the lodge alone. I told the others there had been an accident. Carlos fell through the ice. I tried to save him, but couldn't. They believed me. Why wouldn't they? I'm Dr. Rebecca Frost, Arctic survival expert. That night I went back to the spot where Carlos fell in. The hole had frozen over already, impossible in just a few hours. But when I looked closely, I could see his face just beneath the surface, eyes open, mouth frozen in a scream. I broke the ice with my axe. I pulled him out. I dragged his body to one of the abandoned fishing huts. And then I can't write what happened next. I can't admit it even to myself. But the hunger eased for a while afterward. The remaining students are scared now. They want to leave, but another blizzard has hit. Their snowmobiles won't start. The radio picks up nothing but static and strange. Singing. I tell them we'll be fine. I tell them we have enough supplies now. I tell them Carlos was careless and they need to be more careful. But I'm watching Jen now. She's the smallest, the weakest. She wouldn't be missed as much. My reflection has changed. My cheeks are hollow. My eyes are sunken and yellowish. My teeth feel sharper when I run my tongue over them. The skin on my hands is turning grey and tough like leather. I found 2 of my old team photos from the Arctic expedition. In one, taken before we ran out of food, I'm standing with 5 other people. In the second, taken after rescue, I'm alone. But there's something strange about the second photo now. If I look at it from the corner of my eye, I can see 5 shadow figures standing behind me. Their mouths are open wide. Last night I dreamt I was running across the ice on all 4s, faster than any human could move. I was chasing something, hunting something. I woke up with blood on my pillow from where my new teeth had cut my gums. I think I know what's happening to me now. I think I understand the curse, but it's too late to stop it. I'm so hungry. And Jen's room is just down the hall. Jen is gone now, and Mike. It's just Amara and me left. I tell myself I didn't hurt them, that they got lost in the storm, that they fell through the ice like Carlos did. But I know that's not true. I remember the taste of their flesh. I remember the way the hunger eased for a little while after each one. But it always comes back stronger. My body has changed. I don't feel the cold anymore. Yesterday I stood outside in the blizzard wearing only a t-shirt for an hour. I didn't even shiver. My fingers have grown longer, the nails thick and sharp like claws. My teeth don't fit in my mouth right anymore. They're pointed now, made for tearing. I avoid mirrors, but sometimes I catch my reflection in the ice or the windows. My eyes are yellow, like an animal's. My skin is grey and tight across my face. I'm taller somehow. When I walk, my joints pop and crack like breaking ice. Amara knows something is wrong. She watches me when she thinks I'm not looking. She's been reading those books about Wendigos. I've seen the pages open to drawings that look too much like what I'm becoming. The others aren't coming back, are they? She asked me yesterday. I told her they were lost in the storm. She didn't. Believe me. I know what you are, she whispered. I know what you're becoming. I should have killed her then. But something stopped me. Maybe a last bit of my human self, or maybe I just wanted to hear what she knew. Amara told me about the Wendigo curse, how it starts when someone eats human flesh, how the hunger never goes away, how the person slowly turns into a monster that can only think about feeding. But there's a way to stop it, she said, if you choose to. I laughed. A strange sound, more like ice cracking than human laughter. Why would I want to stop it? I asked her. I'm stronger now. I don't feel the cold. I can see in the dark. I can hear things miles away. Because you're not you anymore, she said, and soon there won't be anything human left. I locked her in the supply closet after that. I told myself I was saving her for later, when the hunger got bad again. But really, I think I was afraid of what else she might say. This morning, I heard engines. People were coming. A rescue team, with snowmobiles and supplies. 5 people bundled up against the cold. They called my name as they approached the lodge. I watched them from the window, feeling the hunger rise inside me. 5 fresh meals, 5 chances to feed. My mouth watered. My new claws dug into the wooden windowsill, leaving deep marks, but then I saw something that made me freeze. One of them was Nanook, the Inuit guide who had warned me to leave this place. He looked right at the window where I was standing, like he could see me even though I was hidden in the shadows. I knew then that they weren't here to rescue me. They were here to stop me. I ran to the closet to check on Amara. She was gone. A hole had been clawed through the back wall, leading outside. She must have escaped while I was distracted. As I stood there, I heard a noise outside, a low growl that wasn't human. I looked out the back window and saw something moving across the ice. A tall, thin figure running on all fours, faster than any person could move. Its skin was grey-white, like dead flesh. Antlers rose from its head. Another Wendigo. I wasn't the only one. I ran outside, following it. The cold air felt good on my skin. Running on all fours felt natural now. I chased the other Wendigo across the lake, past the fishing huts, toward the woods on the far shore. It stopped at the edge of the trees and turned to face me. It was once a man, I could tell, but it had been a Wendigo much longer than me. Its body was skeletal, stretched too tall. Its face was all teeth and yellow eyes. It growled at me, marking its territory. This was its hunting ground. I was trespassing. I growled back. I was stronger, newer. This was my place now, my hunting ground, my prey. We fought there on the ice, claws and teeth. Inhuman strength against inhuman strength. The ice cracked beneath us but didn't break. We were creatures of winter now. The cold was our home. I won. I tore out its throat. I fed on its flesh, though it tasted wrong. Old, not human enough anymore. When I returned to the lodge, the rescue team was inside. They had found my journal. They knew what had happened here. Nanook looked at me as I entered. He wasn't afraid. "You have a choice still," he said. "The spring thaw is coming. You can end this." "Why would I want to end this?" I asked. My voice sounded wrong, raspy and deep. "Because part of you is still human," he said. "The part that locked the girl away instead of killing her. The part that's still writing in this journal." I looked down at my clawed hands. They didn't look like my hands anymore. "What happens when the ice melts?" I asked. "Some Wendigos migrate north, following the ice," Nanook said. "Others go into the deep caves under the lake, to sleep until next winter. But the curse can be broken before the thaw." "How?" "That's for you to discover," he said. "Every Wendigo faces the same choice in the end." I let them leave. I don't know why. Maybe to give myself time to think. Maybe to prove I still had some control. Or maybe because I knew they'd bring more people, more food. The hunger never stops. It only grows. And I'm still so hungry. The days are getting longer now. The endless night of winter is fading. I can feel the sun's warmth growing stronger, even through the clouds and snow. The ice on the lake makes different sounds, softer, wetter cracks that mean it's weakening. Spring is coming. The starving season will end. I found Amara yesterday. She was hiding in one of the ice fishing huts, surrounded by her books and notes. She had drawn symbols on the walls and floor, protection symbols from Inuit legend. I could smell her fear when I approached, but she didn't run. "I've been studying you," she said, "learning about what you are." I stood in the doorway, my body, too tall now to enter without stooping. My antlers, yes, I have antlers now, small ones that broke through my scalp a week ago, scraped against the top of the frame. "And what am I?" I asked, my voice a rasping growl. "You're trapped," she said, "in a loop. This has happened before, many times." She showed me her notes, pages of research about this place, about the people who had disappeared here over the years, about the strange weather patterns that repeat, about the stories locals tell of a woman with white blonde hair who appears before people vanish. "You died in that Arctic expedition," she said. "All of you died. But the Wendigo curse brought you back. You've been drawing people here for decades, feeding the hunger." I wanted to tell her she was wrong, but memories were coming back to me now. Memories of other winters, other victims, other versions of this same story, playing out over and over. "The curse needs to be fed," she continued. "It needs to create new Wendigos. That's why you brought us here. That's why you always bring people here." "I didn't bring you," I said. "The university sent you." She shook her head. Check your emails, check your phone records. You requested us. You always do, though you never remember doing it. I left her alive. Again. I don't know why. Maybe because she's the only one who understands what I am now. I went back to the lodge and found my old phone. The battery was dead, but I found a charger. When it turned on, I saw she was right. Emails from me to the university requesting graduate assistance, specifying 4 students with specific skills, arranging their arrival for exactly when the hunger would be strongest. I've done this before. How many times? I checked the date on the phone, February 20th, almost exactly 3 months since I arrived. But the year was wrong. It said 2017. I arrived here in 2024. 7 years. I've lost 7 years. Or maybe time doesn't work right here. Maybe time is part of the curse too. I went back out onto the lake. The ice was getting soft in places. Dangerous. I could hear water moving beneath it. I walked to the center where the ice was still thick and looked down. Faces looked back at me, dozens of them, frozen just beneath the surface. Carlos, Jen, Mike, students from years I can't remember, members of my Arctic expedition, people from the village of 1890, all of them with their mouths open in screams, all of them with yellow eyes like mine. We're all part of it, all trapped in the curse. I ran then, ran faster than any human could, across the ice and into the woods. I found caves there, deep in the hillside. Inside were more Wendigos. Some fresh, some ancient, some still partly human, some nothing but skin stretched over bone. All waiting for the ice to melt, all hungry. They welcomed me as one of them. They showed me how to hibernate through the summer, how to wait for winter to return. How to bring more prey when the hunger wakes us again. I almost stayed with them. It would be easy to give in, to become fully what I was becoming, to surrender to the hunger. But I went back to the fishing hut where Amara waited. I asked her one question: how do I break the curse? She told me what Nanook had told her. The Wendigo curse is fed by selfishness, by the choice to consume others to save yourself. It can only be broken by the opposite choice. You have to sacrifice yourself, she said. When the ice breaks up in spring, you have to walk into the lake, willingly, with no hope of survival. I'll just drown, I said. Yes, she replied. The human part of you will die, but the curse will be broken. For everyone? I asked, thinking of the faces under the ice, the Wendigos in the cave. No, she said, just for you. Each Wendigo must make its own choice. I've been watching the lake for days now, watching the ice thin, listening to the water beneath. The other Wendigos have retreated to their caves. They sleep now, waiting for next winter. The hunger is quieter as spring approaches. It doesn't go away, but it dulls, like a hibernating bear's hunger. I let Amara go yesterday. I showed her a safe path across the thinning ice. I gave her my journal and told her to make sure others knew what happens here. She promised she would. I believe her. Today I saw the first crack in the center of the lake, a long jagged line that means the thaw has truly begun. Water seeps up through it, dark against the white ice. I have a choice to make. I can retreat to the caves with the others, sleep through the warm months, wake with the first snow to hunt again, live forever as a creature of endless hunger. Or I can walk into the lake when the ice breaks. End this cycle, at least for me, free whatever is left of my human soul. I don't know which I'll choose. The Wendigo in me wants to survive. The scientist in me wants to understand more. The human in me wants peace. But as I write these final words, I find myself thinking not of hunger, but of those I've consumed, of the lives I've taken, of the pain I've caused. And I wonder if there might be something waiting beyond the hunger, beyond the curse. The ice is breaking now, I can hear it. Great cracks like gunshots across the lake. It's time to choose. My name is Rebecca Frost. I study the cold. I became the cold. And now I think I'm ready for warmth again. My name is Ray Holbrook. I'm 42 years old, and I've seen things no man should ever see, not just in Vietnam, where I served my country, but right here in America too. Things that make war look like a picnic. I'm a detective now, or at least I was when this all started in the summer of 1974. That's when they sent me to Copper Falls, Utah, to find those missing hikers. 3 young people who came looking for some kind of spiritual healing in the wrong place at the wrong time. The taste of copper is always in my mouth these days. Been that way since '72, when my partner Dave died because I froze up. We got a call about a man beating his wife. When we got there, I just couldn't move. The memories of Vietnam hit me hard, and before I knew it, both Dave and the woman were dead. The copper taste is my punishment, a reminder of the blood I couldn't stop. Copper Falls is an old mining town, 60 miles from anywhere that matters. The Kennecott Copper Corporation dug deep into Navajo sacred land back in '62, and they paid for it when the mine collapsed during some kind of ceremony. 23 workers died that day. The locals say the land took its payment for being violated. Joseph Yazzie, an old Navajo man who still lives near the abandoned town, told me about skinwalkers when I first arrived. Said they were witches who kept the balance of the world by taking human lives when necessary. Said the mine woke something up that should have stayed sleeping. I didn't believe him, of course. I was there to find those hikers, bring them home, and maybe find a little forgiveness for myself along the way. I thought I knew what evil looked like after Nam. I was wrong. The road to Copper Falls changes. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. The first time I drove in, I marked the route on my map. Next morning, those marks didn't match up with where the road actually was, almost like the valley didn't want to be found. The air there smells strange too, like copper and sage mixed together. After a few days, it started doing something to my head. I'd hear colors and taste sounds. The wind blowing through the empty buildings sounded like red, and my coffee tasted like screaming. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how. It all started when I still thought I was the hunter and not the prey, when I still thought I was fully human. I set up in the old sheriff's station with my gear and my trusty .357 Magnum. I'd check my equipment over and over, counting bullets, testing my flashlight, arranging everything just so. It was something I picked up in Vietnam, a ritual to keep the fear away. What I didn't know then was that something was already watching me, studying me, learning my weaknesses. The hiker's campsite was my first clue that something was very wrong. In Copper Falls, their tents and backpacks were laid out in a perfect circle, like a medicine wheel. Nobody camps like that naturally. And when I touched their things, I felt different. My fingernails seemed to grow just a little faster. The enamel on my teeth felt rough, animal-like. Then I found the footprints. They started as wolf tracks, big ones. Then mid-stride, they changed to bear prints. A few steps later, they were human, all in the same line, as if one creature had shifted shapes while walking. Tommy Yazzie, Joseph's grandson, came to find me that afternoon. He was maybe 16, skinny but with old eyes. He looked at those footprints and his face went pale. "It can't hold its shape here," he said. "The ground is too disturbed." "What can't hold its shape?" I asked him. "The skinwalker," he said. "It's not just some monster from our stories, it's a guardian. The mine broke something important here, and now it needs to fix the balance." "By killing hikers?" I asked. Tommy shook his head. "By consuming the essence of those who don't belong. People like you, Detective Holbrook." That's when my radio started picking up voices from 1962, miners talking about the new tunnel they were digging. My watch ran backward for 3 hours. Straight. The odometer on my truck started counting down instead of up. That night I saw it for the first time. Standing at the edge of town was a wolf, bigger than any I'd ever seen. But it was standing on 2 legs, and its eyes, God, its eyes were human. As I stared at it, I smelled Dave's cologne, that cheap stuff he always wore, and I heard my own voice calling for help exactly the way I shouted when Dave was dying. Then it was gone, but the horror was just beginning. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Dave's voice calling for help. Ray, I'm hit, help me! It wasn't just similar to how he sounded that night in '72. It was exactly the same. Same pitch, same fear, same gasping breaths between words. I covered my ears with my pillow, but the voice came from inside my head. Morning couldn't come fast enough. I dragged myself out of the sleeping bag I'd set up in the sheriff's office and made a pot of coffee on my camping stove. My hands shook as I poured it. I needed to find those hikers. That's what I kept telling myself. Find them and get out of this place. Outside, the sun was bright, but it didn't warm me. I drove my truck to the edge of town, following a dirt road that led toward the old mine. About a mile in, I found something that turned my stomach. Animals, rabbits, squirrels, even a coyote, skinned and arranged in a circle. Their empty bodies formed a pattern that hurt my eyes to look at directly. Without thinking, I reached out to touch one of the rabbits. Big mistake. My skin changed where I touched it. For just a few seconds, fur sprouted from my fingertips, then scales, then feathers. I yanked my hand back and stumbled away, heart pounding. I needed to leave, right now. I ran back to my truck and turned the key. The engine coughed and died. I tried again. Nothing. Opening the glove compartment to look for the manual, I found a driver's license, mine. But the issue date was 1962, and the photo showed a face that was me, but not quite. The eyes were wrong. Wider, wilder. That's when I noticed fresh tire tracks on the dirt road. They matched my truck's tires perfectly. I followed them on foot, walking about half a mile before they led me right back to where my truck was parked. I'd been here before, but I had no memory of it. Detective Holbrook. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Tommy stood behind me, his young face serious. "You need to leave," he said. "My truck won't start." "Not the truck. You. Walk. Out if you have to. The skinwalker has your scent now." "I can't leave," I told him. 3 people are missing. I have to find them." Tommy's eyes were sad. "You won't find them the way you're hoping to." He was right. Later that day, I found Janet Morrison. The mine entrance was half collapsed, boards nailed across it with faded danger signs. I had to squeeze through a narrow gap to get inside. My flashlight beam bounced off wet walls as I made my way deeper. The air got colder. Drips of water hit my neck like ice. My flashlight started to dim, so I smacked it against my palm a few times. That's when I heard her, a wet, gurgling sound, like someone trying to talk with a mouth full of blood. I followed the sound to a small chamber. My flashlight beam caught her, and I dropped to my knees. Janet Morrison was pinned to the rock wall. Her skin was mostly gone, replaced with patches of wolf pelt crudely stitched to her body. But she was alive. Her eyes found mine, pleading. "Kill me," she whispered. I threw up right there on the mine floor. When I could breathe again, I approached her. Up close, I could see the transformation wasn't complete. The wolf skin was merging with what remained of her human flesh, becoming one. "Please," she begged. I took out my .357. My hand shook so bad I nearly dropped it. "I'm sorry," I whispered, and pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed through the mine. As Janet's body slumped, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Her stomach was swollen. She had been pregnant. I had just killed 2 people. The taste of copper flooded my mouth. I stumbled back out of the mine, gasping for air that didn't smell like blood and rot. Outside, the sun was setting. How long had I been in there? It felt like minutes, but hours had passed. Walking back to town, I started remembering things that hadn't happened to me. Janet's last hike with her friends, the terror when they realized something was following them, the pain as her skin was peeled away. I remembered Dave's death, but from his perspective. The bullet hitting his chest, the confusion as he fell, the betrayal he felt when I didn't move to help him, and older memories, ancient ones, running through these hills before the white men came, hunting, protecting, watching as the sacred land was violated by machines. By the time I reached the sheriff's office, I wasn't sure whose memories were really mine anymore. That night, it came for me again, not as a wolf this time, but as Dave, perfect in every detail, his face, his voice, even the small scar on his chin from a childhood accident he'd told me about once. "You let me die, Ray," he said, standing at the foot of my sleeping bag. "You froze up. Now it's your turn to pay." I screamed and fired my gun at him. The bullets went right through, leaving holes in the wall behind him. Dave smiled, his teeth too sharp, too numerous. "The Skinwalker wants you, Ray," he said. "But first, it wants you to suffer." He vanished, and I was alone again with the smell of gunpowder and fear. The next morning, I found Mark Chen, the second hiker. Mark Chen wasn't in the mine. He was in the old company store, sitting in a corner like he was waiting for me. At least what was left of him was. His body was changing. Fur sprouted from his arms and back. His face was stretched forward, halfway between human and animal. When he saw me, he opened his mouth to reveal teeth that were too long, too sharp. But the worst part? He spoke to me in Navajo. I'd never learned the language, but somehow I understood every word. "The land demands payment," he said, "for what they did to it, for what they took from it." "Mark," I whispered, "is there anything left of you in there?" He tilted his head, almost like a dog. "Mark is here. Mark is becoming. You will too." I backed away, my hand on my gun. I couldn't shoot him like I'd shot Janet. Not while he could still talk. Not while there was still a person in there somewhere. "What's happening to you?" I asked. "The Skinwalker shares its skin," Mark said. "First it takes yours, then it gives you a new one, better, stronger." He stood up, his movements jerky and wrong. His knees bent the opposite way now, like an animal's hind legs. "Run, detective," he said. "It makes the hunt better when you run." I ran. Back at the sheriff's office, I noticed something wrong with my reflection in the window. I was holding myself differently, crouching slightly instead of standing straight. My head tilted when I heard sounds like a dog listening, and my teeth. I ran my tongue over them and felt my canines. They were longer, sharper. I was changing too. That night, I dreamed of the mine, but it wasn't like any mine I'd ever seen. The tunnels went on forever, twisting in ways that shouldn't be possible. Some passages led to Vietnam. I could smell the jungle, hear the gunfire. Others opened into the past. Miners working in 1962. Native Americans performing ceremonies centuries ago. The mine was bigger on the inside than the outside. It was a place where time and space didn't work right. I woke up to someone knocking on the door. Tommy Yazzie stood outside, holding a small leather pouch. "I brought something to protect you," he said, stepping inside. "My grandfather made it." The pouch contained what looked like ashes mixed with herbs. Tommy started spreading it in a circle around my sleeping bag. "This might help keep it away for one night," he explained. "But you need to leave, detective. You're making things worse by being here." "I can't leave without finding the third hiker," I said. Tommy shook his head. "You don't understand. The Skinwalker has been waiting for someone like you. Someone with guilt and pain it can use. It's not just hunting you, it's changing you." Before I could answer, we heard a sound outside. A low growl that turned into a high-pitched scream. Tommy's eyes went wide. "It's here." "Stay inside the circle," I told him, grabbing my gun. "No, don't go out there." But I was already moving toward the door. I had to face this thing, had to end it somehow. Outside, the street was empty in the moonlight. I stepped forward, gun raised, eyes scanning the shadows. The attack came from behind. Something slammed into me, sending my gun flying. I hit the ground hard, rolling to my feet just in time to see it. The skinwalker wore the shape of a bear standing on two legs, but its eyes were human, my eyes. It charged again, and I dodged, feeling the wind of its massive paw as it missed my head by inches. I scrambled for my gun, fingers closing around the grip. I fired 3 shots into the creature's chest. It didn't even slow down. The skinwalker changed before my eyes, shifting from bear to wolf to something in between. It lunged again, and this time I wasn't fast enough. Pain exploded in my shoulder as teeth sank in. I screamed, firing my remaining bullets point blank. Into the monster, it released me, backing away. Not because I'd hurt it, but because something else had caught its attention. Tommy stood in the doorway of the sheriff's office, chanting words I somehow understood. A prayer for protection, a banishing. The skinwalker snarled, its form shifting again, this time into something I couldn't fully see or understand. It bounded toward Tommy. "No!" I yelled, but it was too late. It was too. The creature reached him, and what happened next will haunt me forever. It didn't attack him the way it had attacked me. Instead, it seemed to flow around him, through him. When it pulled away, Tommy collapsed. The skinwalker was gone, but Tommy wasn't moving. I ran to him, my shoulder bleeding badly. When I reached him, I saw my service weapon on the ground beside him. The gun I'd dropped in the street was now here, and there was a bullet hole in Tommy's chest. Somehow, the skinwalker had used my own gun to kill him. I carried Tommy's body inside, laying him gently on the floor. My hands shook as I tried to find a pulse I knew wouldn't be there. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." That's when I heard Tommy's voice behind me. "Sorry doesn't bring back the dead, detective." I spun around. Tommy stood there, but his eyes were wrong. His smile was wrong. The skinwalker was wearing Tommy's skin. "You're responsible for another death," it said in Tommy's voice. "How many more will there be before you understand what's happening to you?" "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Want?" It laughed, and the sound was like rocks grinding together. "I don't want anything from you. I'm making..." "You creating you. Creating what?" "A new guardian," it said. "Someone to watch over this place when I'm gone. Someone who understands the price of violation." It stepped closer, and I could smell death on its breath. Tommy's death. "You're turning into me, Ray Holbrook. Can you feel it?" I could feel it. The fur growing beneath my clothes. The way my spine was lengthening, changing, my jaw extending forward. And the hunger, God, the hunger for flesh, for essence, for life. "You're not real," I whispered. "You're just in my head." "Am I?" it asked, reaching out with Tommy's hand to touch my face. "Or are you in mine?" It vanished, leaving me alone with Tommy's body and my growing horror. Later that night, I found a package of jerky in my bag. I was starving, so I tore into it, without thinking. It wasn't until I'd eaten half of it that I realized it tasted strange, rich, familiar, human. I'd been eating human flesh, and some part of me had known it all along. Something moved in my stomach, like eggs hatching. I could feel them squirming inside me, changing me from within. I ran outside and tried to make myself throw up, but it was too late. Whatever was inside me was already becoming part of me. That's when I realized I'd been in Copper Falls much longer than I thought. The calendar on the wall showed I'd arrived. Weeks ago, not days. But that couldn't be right, could it? Time wasn't working properly here. I was losing days, maybe weeks. And during those lost periods, what had I been doing? Who had I been? The next morning, I woke up to the sound of a truck engine. Someone was coming to Copper Falls. I looked in the cracked mirror on the wall and barely recognized myself. My hair had grown wild overnight. My eyes had changed color, from brown to a yellowish amber. When I opened my mouth, my canine teeth were definitely longer. I was turning into something else. Outside, an old pickup truck had parked in front of The general store. A man in his 60s climbed out, looking around nervously. He was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt with a hunting rifle slung over his shoulder. Part of me wanted to call out, to warn him to leave. But another part, a new, hungry part, wanted him to stay. I watched from the shadows as he called out, "Janet! Janet, are you here?" My stomach dropped. This had to be Janet Morrison's father, come looking for his daughter, the daughter I'd killed in the mine. "Hello?" I called, stepping into view. I tried to stand straight to look normal, though my body wanted to crouch low like an animal. "Can I help you?" The man turned, relief washing over his face when he saw another person. "Thank God," he said. "I'm Jake Morrison. My daughter, Janet, came up here with some friends a few weeks back. They were supposed to be gone 3 days, but nobody's heard from them. I've been driving all over looking for them. I'm Detective Ray Holbrook," I said, keeping my distance. "I'm here investigating their disappearance." Hope lit up his eyes. "Have you found anything? Are they okay?" The lie came easily. "No sign of them yet, but I'm still looking." Even as I spoke, I could feel the hunger growing inside me. Jake Morrison smelled like life, like essence. The thing I was becoming wanted to consume that. "Let me show you the campsite we found," I heard myself say. "Maybe you'll notice something I missed." "No," a voice screamed in my head. "Don't take him anywhere. Let him leave." But my body wasn't listening to that voice anymore. "That would be great," Jake said, following me. I led him toward the mine, fighting myself every step of the way. My body moved on its own while my mind screamed in protest. "It's just up ahead," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "You know," Jake said, "Janet was so excited about this trip, said it would be healing. Her mother and I worried, but she was always strong-willed." "Was she pregnant?" I asked suddenly. Jake stopped walking. "How did you know that?" "She only told her closest friends." I didn't answer. We had reached the mine entrance. "Their campsite is inside?" he asked, confused. "No," I said, "but Janet is." Jake's face changed as he understood what I meant. He reached for his rifle, but I was faster than a human should be now. My hand caught his wrist, squeezing until he dropped the gun. "What are you?" he gasped. "I don't know anymore," I said honestly. And then the hunger took over. Later, I don't know how much later, I came back to myself. Jake Morrison's body lay at my feet, but it wasn't torn apart the way I expected. Instead, his skin was carefully removed like someone had peeled it off in one piece. I stumbled back, horrified. Had I done this? I couldn't remember. It was like those missing weeks, a blank in my memory. As I backed away, I heard voices in my head. Jake's voice, wondering where his daughter was. Janet's voice, afraid in the dark. Tommy's voice, chanting protection prayers. And older voices, miners dying in the collapse, Navajo ancestors warning about disturbed land. All these voices were inside me now, like I was collecting them, becoming a library of the dead. I ran back to town, tripping over my changing feet. My toes had begun to fuse together, forming something between human feet and paws. Running on all fours felt more natural now. When I reached the sheriff's office, there was a woman sitting inside. For a moment, my heart stopped. I knew her. "Lisa," I whispered. "Lisa Rodriguez, my ex-wife. The woman I'd pushed away after Vietnam when the nightmares got too bad." She stood up when she saw me, her eyes widening at my appearance. "Ray, what happened to you? How did you find me?" I asked, staying in the doorway. The hunger was still, there watching her through my eyes. "The department called me," she said. "They haven't heard from you in 3 weeks. They're worried. I'm worried." But something was wrong. The department wouldn't call my ex-wife. We'd been divorced for years. "You're not real," I said, the truth dawning on me. "You're it, the skinwalker." She tilted her head, just like Mark. "Done. Part of me is the skinwalker. Part of me is your memory of Lisa. Does it matter which is which anymore? What do you want?" I asked, though I already knew. I want you to choose, Ray, she said, stepping closer. Consume her essence, the last piece of your humanity, or lose your connection to what you once were forever. I won't hurt her, I said, even if she's just a memory. Then you'll never be complete, the thing wearing Lisa's face said. You'll be trapped between worlds forever. Before I could answer, Lisa moved, faster than any human could move. She was across the room in a blink, her hand on my chest. Time works differently for us, she whispered. I can be in the past and future at the same time. I can kill people who haven't arrived yet. I can wear skins of people who don't exist. To prove her point, she changed before my eyes. 1 second she was Lisa, the next she was Dave, then Tommy, then Janet. Faces flickered over her form like a deck of cards being shuffled. Stop, I begged. You've been calling them here, she said, her voice a blend of all the voices in my head. Every radio report you send, every time you reach out, you're singing the hunting song, Ray, bringing me more food, more skins. Had I been doing that? I tried to remember my radio calls, but those memories were foggy, distant. How many more will come because of you? She asked. How many more will feed me, feed us? I shoved her away and ran outside. The sun was setting again. Another day gone. Time slipping away from me. I staggered to my truck and tried the radio. It crackled to life, and I heard my own voice. This is Detective Holbrook. I've found the missing hikers. Send back up immediately, Copper Falls mining town. But I hadn't sent that message. At least I didn't think I had. The radio continued, my voice speaking words I didn't remember saying. Bring medical support. Multiple survivors, hurry. I was calling people to their deaths, had been for weeks. I smashed the radio with my fist, which was now more claw than hand. But it was too late. More people would come. More people would die. That night I went back to the mine. I had to see it, had to understand what was really happening. The tunnels seemed to go on forever, twisting in impossible ways. I followed them deeper than should have been possible until I found a large cavern I'd never seen before. Hanging from the ceiling were dozens of skins, human skins stretched out like grotesque flags. Each one represented a broken promise, a violation of sacred ground, a life taken to feed the hunger. This was the Skinwalker's true home, and soon it would be mine. In that cave, surrounded by human skins, I finally understood what the Skinwalker truly was. It wasn't just wearing human skins, it was wearing the skin of reality itself. Each person it took made it stronger, more real in our world. I touched one of the skins, and suddenly I could see through the eyes of the person it had been. A miner in 1962, feeling the earth shake as the tunnels collapsed. The terror, the betrayal, the anger at those who had disturbed sacred ground for copper and money. The Skinwalker wasn't just a monster, it was the land's revenge. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to find a man I didn't recognize. He wore a search and rescue uniform and carried a backpack. Detective Holbrook, he said, I'm Carlos Rivera. We got your call for backup. But I hadn't made that call. At least, not the real me. You need to leave, I told him. Right now. Carlos frowned, looking around the cave. What is all this? Where are the survivors you reported? There are no survivors, I said. It was a trap. I didn't make that call. His face changed then, not with fear, but with understanding. Actually, you did make the call, Ray, don't you remember? You've been making calls for weeks. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. I looked at him more closely and realized I could see through him in places, like he wasn't fully there. You're not real, I whispered. You were never real. Carlos smiled, his teeth too numerous, too sharp. I'm as real as you need me to be. I'm just another skin the Walker wears, like you're becoming. He stepped closer, and I backed away. Every person you've met here might be me, testing different forms, different skins. Horror washed over me as I realized what that meant. Had anyone here been real? Tommy, Jake, even the hikers I'd found. "You've been hunting people as me," I said, the truth dawning on me, "using my identity, my badge." "And you've been so good at it," Carlos said, his voice changing to sound exactly like mine. "Your guilt and pain make such excellent bait." Before I could respond, Carlos moved with impossible speed. His body seemed to fold around mine, like he was trying to slip inside my skin. I could feel him pressing against me, trying to get in through my eyes, my mouth, my pores. "I can wear you while you're still alive," he whispered, his voice now coming from inside my head. "Your body, your badge, your access to the outside world." I fought back, clawing at him with hands that were now more animal than human. The cave spun around me as we struggled. Then suddenly, like a feedback loop, I was flooded with memories, not just mine but the skinwalkers, centuries of watching, hunting, protecting, the pain when the white men came, the rage when they dug into sacred ground, the need to restore balance. The pressure stopped. Carlos stood a few feet away, watching me with interest. "You see now," he said. "You understand." I did understand, and that terrified me more than anything. I ran from the cave, stumbling through mine tunnels that twisted in impossible ways. When I finally emerged outside, I fell to my knees and vomited. What came out wasn't food, but something dark and writhing. The transformation was accelerating. Back in town, I found another search team member waiting at the sheriff's office. A woman this time, Angela Foster, according to her name tag. "Detective Holbrook?" she asked, her eyes widening at my appearance. "Are you hurt?" I knew I looked monstrous now, my face stretched forward, fur covering most of my body, my hands curled into permanent claws. "You need to leave," I told her. "Everyone who comes here dies." But even as I said it, I felt the hunger rising. Part of me wanted her to stay, wanted to add her to the collection of skins and voices. "I can't leave without the others," she said. "Carlos and the hikers we came to rescue. They're gone," I told her, "and you will be too if you stay." Angela looked scared, but determined. "Then help me find them. That's why you called us, right?" I hadn't called anyone, but my other self, the skinwalker part, had. That's when I noticed the old leather book on the desk. It hadn't been there before. When I opened it, I found Navajo words I somehow understood, a ritual, a way to bind the skinwalker. But the ritual required a sacrifice, a willing human sacrifice. I looked at Angela, and the hunger grew stronger. No, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't become the monster completely. "I need your help," I told her, showing her the book. "There's a way to stop what's happening here, to keep the skinwalker from spreading beyond this valley." "What do we need to do?" she asked. I explained the ritual as best I could. We would need to return to the Cave of Skins and perform a ceremony that would bind the skinwalker to the valley forever. What I didn't tell her was that the ritual needed blood. Her blood. We headed back to the mine together. With each step, I fought the hunger inside me, the need to complete my transformation by taking her life. "What happened to you?" she asked as we walked. "How did you change like this?" "The skinwalker," I said. "It changes you slowly. First your mind, then your body. Can it be reversed?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. Not for me. But we can stop it from happening to anyone else." The mine felt different this time. The walls pulsed like they were breathing. The tunnels seemed to know where we wanted to go, opening before us. When we reached the Cave of Skins, Angela gasped. "What is this place?" "The Skinwalker's true home," I said, "where it keeps its collection." I opened the book and began the ritual, speaking words in Navajo that I shouldn't have known. The air in the cave grew heavy. The skins on the walls began to move, as if stirred by an unfelt wind. Angela watched, her face pale with fear. "Is it working?" "Almost," I said. "There's one more part." This was the moment. I needed to choose. Take her life to complete the ritual, potentially saving thousands of others from the Skinwalker's spread, or spare her and risk the creature expanding beyond the valley using modern communication technology to infect the outside world. The knife in my hand felt heavy. The hunger in my belly raged. Angela saw the knife and backed away. "What are you doing?" "The ritual needs blood," I said, my voice rough and animal-like. "A sacrifice." "My blood? You're going to kill me?" I moved toward her, fighting myself every step. The part of me that was still Ray Holbrook screamed to stop. The part that was becoming the Skinwalker urged me forward. Angela turned to run, but the cave entrance had sealed itself. There was nowhere to go. "Please," she begged. "There has to be another way." And maybe there was. The book had said a willing sacrifice, not necessarily her death. "Give me your hand," I said, lowering the knife. She hesitated, then slowly extended her hand. I cut her palm just enough to draw blood. Then I cut my own. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Changing the ritual," I said. "My blood, your blood, willingly given." We pressed our bleeding hands together, and I continued the chant. The cave began to shake. The skins on the walls shriveled and turned to dust. A howl of rage filled the air. The original Skinwalker, feeling its power drain away, it appeared before us then, in its true form. Not wolf or bear or human, but something that existed in multiple dimensions at once. A tear, in reality, that fed on identity to heal itself. "You can't defeat me," it snarled in 1,000 voices at once. "You're becoming me." "No," I said. "I'm becoming something else, something new." Our mixed blood began to glow where our hands met. The Skinwalker shrieked and lunged at us, but it was too late. The ritual was complete. The creature dissolved into mist, drawn into my body like water into a sponge. I felt its power, its knowledge, its hunger becoming part of me, but it wasn't controlling me. I was controlling it. Angela pulled her hand away, staring at me in horror and wonder. "What just happened?" "I bound it," I said. "To me, to this valley. You absorbed it." "Someone had to," I explained. "The balance must be maintained, the sacred ground protected. But it doesn't have to be done with cruelty and death." I looked down at myself. The transformation hadn't reversed, but it had stabilized. I was neither fully human nor fully monster, something in between. "You need to leave," I told her. "Tell them there was a cave-in. Everyone died, including me." "But you're alive," she said. "Ray Holbrook isn't," I replied. "Not anymore. I'm something else now, the guardian of this place." Angela hesitated, then nodded. "What will you do here? All alone?" "Protect the balance," I said. "Make sure no one else disturbs what should be left in peace." I led her out of the mine, out of the valley. At the edge of Copper Falls, I stopped. "I can't go any further," I explained. "I'm bound to this place now, but you'll be safe once you're beyond the valley." She looked back at me one last time. "Goodbye, Ray." "That's not my name anymore," I said, and watched her drive away.